hello. Well, hello, everybody. What is going on? I am Plush Ebola, and I am here hosting with my good friend TTV Sub Zero. What's going on? We're back. How are you? How are you today?
I am very good, Plushy Bowler. How are you?
I am also very good, TTV Sub Zero. Thank you for asking.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the Totally Human Gaming Podcast.
Yes, we are totally human. Please believe us when we say those words that humans say.
Would
And
a human drink coffee?
yes, I believe that humans love to consume caffeinated beverages like coffee.
I shall do it more then.
That's not coffee. Error,
Oops.
error,
Error.
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 What's up, man? How are you? You doing all right?
I'm all good. Been playing some games,
Ooh,
the usual. How have
ooh.
you been? What have you been up to?
Video games. I love video games. I've also been playing video games, and I've been looking forward to a lot of the video games that are releasing this month.
Hell yeah.
In fact, one of the big releases just came out, which is Horizon Forbidden West, and although I pre-ordered it through Amazon, it seems as though there is a bit of a back order, it seems, on that game. I will note that I ordered the PS4 version, which is probably the version that most people ordered, right? Because even if you have a PS5, it's $10 cheaper to get the PS4 version, and you get a free upgrade to the PS5 version. So
Just doesn't
why?
make sense.
Yeah, why spend the $10 PS5 tax? It's stupid.
The weird thing is, like, I understand with the physical version, people on PS5 want the PS5 copy for their shelf or whatever. They might not want a PS4 copy of something in between
Right.
all of their PS5 games. But the digital edition, they've got a PS4 and a PS5 digital edition,
Yeah.
and there's no difference between them
No.
besides the price. One's $10 more. One's like, well, I say dollars. One's £10 more than the other. I think PS4 version's £60,
Hmm.
and the PS5 version's £70.
Yeah, that's
There's no
pretty
difference
much the
between them.
same here. I mean, the difference is that one is a native, the native PS5 version, but fundamentally it is the same game. Like you're not getting anything extra
But it's
by
it's
getting the
not even
PS5.
that. On
Oh.
the digital version, you get, if you buy the PS4 version, you get both the PS4, PS5 downloads. If you
Uh.
buy the PS5 version, you get the PS5 and the PS4 downloads.
Oh.
So there's literally no difference.
I
No
don't know.
difference at all.
They
You
they
still get both versions.
they need to work that out. Apparently, Horizon is the last game that's going to offer a free upgrade path. So the next couple cross-gen games, which I think are Gran Turismo 7, right, and God of War Ragnarok, they're not going to have any kind of free upgrade path. So it's going to have that $10 the PS5 tax, as we've come to kind of call it. But so yeah, I haven't got my copy of Horizon yet. I think we're kind of planning on talking more in depth about that game and possibly Elden Ring next week, which are two. These two games are probably like a lot of people's most hyped up games, and they're both these big, huge, meaty open world experiences that want a lot of time dedicated to them. So I simply won't be able to spend much time with both of them over the course of the next week. But I do want to talk more in depth about those games next week. But normally we start off our talk with what have you been playing lately, and I feel like that is one of your games that you've been playing lately, right?
Yeah, it is. I've been playing pretty much that since I got it. The ironic thing is for you, I think, or the thing that you don't really want to hear is that I got my copy a day early
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
before release date. So yeah, it's a bit strange. But yeah, it's the only thing I've been really playing through significantly. The problem I've got about next week is that I probably won't be able to play many games at all over the weekend.
Mm.
And that's obviously when Elden Ring comes out. So I feel like maybe
Yeah, we
I
could.
would have more of a say on Horizon, and you'd have more of a say on Elden Ring.
Yeah,
But
if you want, we can always postpone that talk too. It's not like we need to talk about that next week, but we'll see. We'll see when we get there. Overall, though, I guess thumbs up on Horizon. You think I'm gonna dig it when I get my copy?
yeah, one of the things that I was worried about on the Horizon Zero Dawn was I really liked the background lore and what happened before the incident, if you know what I mean.
Mm.
But the the whole story regarding the tribes people and the interactions between the different tribes and stuff, I really didn't care about.
Mm.
So I was a bit worried about this game in the fact that everything's been revealed about the past lore. Well, pretty much everything.
Mm.
So is this just going to be completely all tribes people and stuff? And it seems like so far it's not necessarily,
Okay,
but I can say that the tribe stuff is a lot better
that's good.
than the previous games.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more political intrigue, all this sort of stuff,
Mm.
which I quite like. It seems like they kind of railroad you into the tutorial area at the beginning, which is fine. You know, it's not very long.
Mm.
They kind of get you reintroduced with all of the mechanics again. For some reason, Aloy has lost all of her weapons.
Of course
So
she
it's one of
has.
those things, you know.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
They don't really explain it. They're just like, okay, you just have your bow and a stick now.
Oh,
Um,
good.
so that's fine.
Did they
But
do
so
the
then they,
did they do the kind of Witcher 3 thing where you've got like a you know how Witcher 3 opened with like basically like a smaller open world map, and then once you play the first like 3 hours or
that's yeah,
whatever, it's like here's
that's
the actual
exactly
open world.
exactly what I was about to say.
Yeah.
Actually, they sort of like bring you into a little contained world with a little gate that brings you out into the big world, which is closed until you sort of do the main little story in the first area.
Right.
You can kind of like beeline it straight there and do that mission. It's not
Mm.
too bad, but they've got a lot of side stuff in there as well. The side missions actually seem pretty good so far.
Mm.
They don't seem to be just like, okay, this is like a side mission where you have to go and clear out a camp. This is one where you have to go and do this or that.
Mm.
It's kind of more like Witcher 3 side missions where they're at their own little kind of stories and stuff. Some of them are quite funny, some of them are quite deep and in depth. Um, and I enjoyed doing that. And they seem to like club together to make something happen in the settlements. You know, you kind of
Right.
can change the world a little bit by, and they reference like 3 different side missions that you had already done as well, which is quite nice. You know, they say, oh, well, Aloy did this, this, and this as well. You know, so
Okay. Yeah.
this is why you person can't stay here or whatever. And it's like, oh, okay, that's quite nice that they did that. They acknowledged that I've done all this stuff for the little settlement, and that's sort of sorted out the whole problem behind it.
Mm.
um but they have also got question marks all over the map, as
Oh
you'd
boy.
expect.
Yep.
We playing so many open world games recently with question marks on the map, and it's not good for my brain because I have to do everything. I have to
Yeah.
discover everything. It seems like in Horizon that when you do a side mission, you don't just get extra resources or money or whatever. You actually get actually pretty decent stuff. I mean,
Oh,
one of
good.
them I got an exploding javelin weapon, which I throw like your traditional javelin, and it just destroys things like crazy. And I'm like, oh, if I didn't do this side mission, which I could have easily missed, I wouldn't have got that until probably later in the game or something.
Mm.
So I thought that was quite good. But the question marks all over the map. There's there was one that was like high up on a massive mountain, and Horizon has this kind of climbing mechanic in it, which
Right.
is very similar to like Ghost of Tsushima, Assassin's Creed, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's quite nice to be able to climb without running out of strength and falling down, dying like two.
That's true. Do they
Um,
still have? Is it still like designated climbing? Like more like Uncharted and Ghost of Tsushima, or is it more along the lines of like Assassin's Creed slash like Breath of the Wild, where you
it's
can?
in between.
Okay.
So it's not quite like Breath of the Wild where you can like climb up anything.
Mm.
There's a few things that you can't climb, but if you do the old scan, which every open world game has as well nowadays,
Mm.
if you do a scan near a wall, it will come up with these little red X's which show you can't climb up that wall,
Mm.
or it will come up with like kind of these yellow lines which shows that Aloy can grab onto these particular areas.
Gotcha.
So sometimes you can see like kind of a path up if you scan, but sometimes you just see like the whole thing is yellow. So you can just climb up this whole mountain or whatever and
Oh,
get to the
okay.
top. So
That's cool.
it's kind of in between. They kind of gate you in certain places for good reason
Mm.
because you know you might be able to skip by big chunks of the game. But
Yeah,
um,
speaking of that, like scanning, that like kind of detective vision thing that, Batman and Witcher had it too, right? Like Witcher had its like Witcher
yeah,
vision. Um
Dying Light had it. Yeah,
yeah,
Dying Light too.
I feel like open world games tend to a lot of side missions like heavily crutch themselves on that mechanic where it's like
Mm.
scan, you see footprints, now you're following footprints for the next like 3 minutes, and then okay, you're in an area, scan for clues, and it is
Exactly
it
the
is an
same in this one. Yeah.
effective, it is an effective storytelling device where it kind of makes you feel like you're sleuthing together the story, of whatever
Yeah.
happened. But
It kind of works in the context of Horizon as well because she's got
mhm.
this little focus thing, which is like basically some kind of iPhone like does a
It's
device
like a
from the old
Bluetooth,
world,
yeah.
which Bluetooth like headset thing, but it like scans the area. She's got like all of explanations and shows weak points of enemies and stuff. So when you scan, it's like, oh, okay, right, this thing is going off, pulsing and looking for anything interested in the area. It's not quite like Dying Light 2, which just has a scan for no reason. It's kind of like his perception or something.
It's like a
Um,
pulse, like that one's more like a pulse scan, right? Where it's like you don't have it. Do you keep the one activated in, because like in Witcher it was like you would switch into like a mode, and that mode like stays as
yeah,
long as you still have it activated. But Dying Light is more like it sends out like a pulse and just highlights
yeah, and
things around you.
so is Horizon, but Horizon's got its
Mm.
own little like scanning mode, like really detailed scanning mode, which
Uh-huh.
makes you kind of zooms in close over the shoulder, and you can scan like enemies for weak points and stuff like that. But it slows you down a lot, so you can't really. It's not viable to stay in that mode.
Mm.
Um, but anyway, going back to what I was saying before, there's like this big ruins on top of a mountain, and I worked my way all the way up to the mountain. There was kind of a designated path with things breaking and all that sort of stuff. Got
Mm.
right to the top, and then found out that I needed another item, like an ability or something, to be able to
Mm.
get further.
I hate
And I was
that.
like, oh, for God's sake. So there are a few bits in the game which are gated like that,
Right.
which is a bit annoying. There's also some really cool ruin puzzles as well, which are like kind of mini Zelda dungeons,
Ooh.
where you've got to kind of move around blocks and things and try and understand the story. Like one is like a motel, and you find out that people had a party there, and then they put something in the storeroom. And the whole point of these little puzzles is to open a door, which you can then pick up something, a relic of the old world.
Mm.
And it's like what I really like about Horizon is that whenever you pick up relics from the old world, they don't know what they're used for. So like a bunch of keys, they'll call them like old world chimes, and it's
Okay.
like, oh, that's funny, and they think that they're just like little chimes like that, they jingle them about, and
Mm.
they don't know that they're keys. Or like a watch will just be like black bracelet or something because they're like,
Right.
I don't know time and all that sort of stuff. So it's quite cool. Like the puzzles are really good, but I did walk into one of those puzzles again where I needed something, like,
Mm.
and I was looking around for ages, and like Aloy tries to give you a little bit of a hint every now and then, and the way that she talks to you can sometimes be like very on the nose. It's like, maybe I
Mm.
should do this, and it's like, okay, Aloy, I know I'm not completely stupid, but sometimes she'll say, oh, it looks like I can't get through here, maybe I should come back later, and I'm like, oh, okay, right, okay,
Mm.
I understand what you're trying to tell me.
Yeah,
um
I was over towards the beginning of the week. I replayed the well, not replayed. I never actually played through the Frozen Wilds DLC of the first
mhm.
game, so I decided I'd go back and revisit it, kind of get like reacquainted with the systems and stuff Horizon, and I was reminded that like, yeah, the drama between like the tribes and stuff was always probably the least interesting aspect of Horizon's story to me. So to hear that that's at least been, taken more into consideration this time around, that's good. I
Yeah.
also I don't know, man, I'm not really a big fan of Aloy personally. Like I don't know, something about her is, I don't really like her character that much. I do like the mystery and the central story of Horizon, and but like, I don't know, something about Aloy is not my favorite thing. So how is she as a cat? Like you, for example, you say like, she gives you hints every now and then that are like pretty on the nose and stuff, and to me that would be like, like Alloy, like, what do you think, you're smarter than me? Like trying to tell me how to solve this puzzle? Get out of here, Alloy. And I know that she's kind of like the kind of like, it's been established at this point that she's kind of like the chosen one, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of like made its way into the. So how is she, like, in your opinion, like?
She's like kind of as you'd expect her to be at this point.
Mm,
So you can imagine that in the first game, she was like an outcast. Nobody liked her. Nobody would, play with her as a child. And
mm,
as she grew up, she always had this like kind of uh, problem of being shunned by everybody that she met because she was an outcast and all this sort of stuff.
yeah.
And then obviously, as she goes through the game, she becomes like the hero kind of thing. Um, so in this one, I think she's as you'd expect her to be. So she's quite humble because
Mm,
obviously she's had most of her life as an outcast, and she's not too bad in terms of being like quite a big head, if you know what I mean.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
but she's also very badass. She's very
Okay.
badass. Like every single person that she speaks to, everybody that's bad, let's say, she's like she's very forthright. She's very she doesn't take any crap,
Mm,
she's
okay,
just like,
okay.
she sometimes refers to herself, even though that she hates being called like the savior of Meridian or whatever. She's always like, oh no, no, call me Aloy, call me Aloy. But
Mm.
then she'll bring it up when she's speaking to somebody she doesn't like, and she's like, oh, you're really saying that to the savior of Meridian? So it's like,
Oh man.
so
Okay.
she kind of like reacts to whoever's being spoken to.
Mhm.
Um, but I quite like Aloy as a character. I think like I
See,
feel
like, I don't know, like,
I feel like she's, because she knows, she's gone from knowing pretty much nothing. She doesn't know any of the tribes and things because she was an outcast.
right.
She kind of starts training to become one of the tribes members of the Nora, whatever. And then she finds the focus then, so she's kind of like grown up knowing way more about the world than anybody else.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, it's weird because there's a few times where she's kind of like, she knows that, so that there's sun gods and all this sort of stuff that people worship.
Yeah.
And there's a few little cults in the game. There might be a little cult of sun worshippers, and they're going up to like these big towers which reflect the sun and all this, and they think that there's some kind of god up there and whatnot.
Mm.
But she's always like, it's weird, she's kind of like a hardcore atheist as well. So she's like, I wish all of these people wouldn't believe in all this rubbish and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, whoa, Aloy. So she's kind
Science.
of like this person she's kind of the normal one in the world, even though she's like the hero and stuff. Everybody else is still a bit like kind of, even her best friend Val,
Mm.
um, he's still like, he still thinks that the Gaia AI unit, which was like in the Nora kind of territory,
Right.
he still thinks that's the goddess, the mother of all nature and all this crap. Where
Mm.
Aloy knows that it's like a big AI.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's like, what, the AI was speaking to you? Like, what was all this about this person that looked like you in the old world and all this? And it's like, it's kind of, she's like, oh, for God's sake, like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
primitive idiot sort of thing. So it's kind of weird. Like, I know that she has to act that way because of all this stuff that's happened to her. but it's not like, you know, the most interesting, like, you know, character or whatever.
Yeah.
I think the development is quite interesting, but she's like,
I've
she's just this normal person in a crazy, messed up, old school tribal
yeah.
world.
I guess like maybe that's another part of it is that I guess like in the grand scheme of the Horizon story, I don't know, like Aloy tends to be the least interesting one to me. Like for example, Silence, at least in the first game, like he just has so much of this air of mystery around him, and he was almost like the thing that kept me going, like story wise,
Mm.
like just a great like I guess villain, like pseudo villain. We don't still, at least by the end of the first game, you still don't really know like his whole deal.
He's very flip floppy. Yeah.
So, I am looking forward to jumping back into it, both because I mean, it looks beautiful. B, I am, you know, invested at this point in the story, and C, you know, it just looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, when you first boot up the game as well, it gives you like that movie recap of the previous game.
Yeah,
Which
that's
is quite nice.
Yeah.
I kind of needed it. I have been reading up on some stuff to get some more, but
Did
there's also
you?
a codex in the game as well, which like explains everything that happened before, all of the old world characters. Which kind of makes me think maybe some of the old world characters aren't done yet. You know, if you know what I mean.
Right.
But the funny thing is that this movie, this recap movie that plays before the game actually starts, it's narrated by Silence.
Okay,
So
cool.
it's like, oh, okay, right. Silence is, you know, he's going to be part of this game as well.
Yeah, he's
So
gotta be.
yeah, it's cool. So all of those questions, those loose threads that weren't tied up in the first game and its DLC, they should be answered. You know,
Yeah.
I haven't got that far yet, so I don't know. But
Yeah, I assume it'll do the classic, you know, it'll answer all our questions while at the same time posing a whole slew of new ones that
then we
know,
can have the Forbidden North,
yeah,
the Forbidden
exactly.
South.
Oh god, don't go south. Don't go to that south part. But
Don't go to that south part.
Yeah.
Sucks.
But cool. I am very much looking forward to jumping into that game. Again, I'm doing my best to avoid spoilers. So I know a lot of people have been streaming it recently, and yeah, it's just I just can't look at it yet. You know, like I need to have it in my
I'd
possession.
go in, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want
Because
anything spoiled. You know,
the thing
even
about this
just
game,
walking straight through an area.
exactly,
You know,
yeah.
like.
So, like, the thing about this game as well is that it is so beautiful. It looks amazing. I don't think I've even talked about the gameplay in this whole thing. I've just talked about like
Yeah.
the story and the graphics. But the graphics are so good. It's just like I'm playing on PS5. I'm playing on the performance mode because I ain't doing 30 FPS. But it still looks amazing. It's probably one of the greatest games that or the best looking games that I've ever played, and I've played a lot of bloody games. But it's like it's kind of weird as well. I don't know if the story is actually grabbing me as much as the first one, or if it's just because like the facial expressions of the people that you're speaking to, even just minor characters and stuff, it's just so good. Like it's actually like watching a television show rather than, you know, two static people kind of video gamey kind of faces, you know, chatting to each other. It's like it hasn't got that Skyrim or Fallout feel, you know, where everything's pretty static and just unnatural.
So does that make you more invested or less invested?
Oh yeah, it makes me way more invested because it's like everybody reacts like kind of they look more human, you know, and you kind of even the people that you don't quite like and the people that you do like, you kind of like everybody because of it, because it's like, you know, oh, it's that guy again, oh, he's a douche, and oh, it's that person again, oh, they're pretty cool. So like an Aloy, like she just looks fantastic, like her like facial expressions and everything. She's still got that weird smile. I don't know if you remember the weird smile, but she has got the bit of the like kind of like that kind of smile, but I think that's just her face. But yeah, it's
you dissing Ashley Birch, huh?
Ashley Birch, is that the face model? Is it?
I don't. I'll be honest. I don't know if it's the face model, but she is the voice actress. She's the same actress that does Tiny Tina and a couple other video game characters that I can't think of.
Right.
Tiny Tina is probably her most famous.
I can't believe she did
character.
Tiny Tina. That's such a weird, like, oh, that's such a different character, different voice. But
Mm.
no, like, I just so happy if they say, "Oh, she's beautiful." She is very beautiful. She's a very beautiful woman. But she looks like incredible. Like her facial expressions, like her hair, like the way that it, like when she leans forward, like her hair will fall forward. When she leans back, it'll like very natural sort of way.
Right.
It's a bit of clipping still.
Yep.
Like wearing some kind of crazy armor, the hair will clip through. But like everything else is great. And I know there was a bit of controversy about Aloy looking fat or something. It's fine. She looks like a human woman.
People
okay,
will
guys?
make a
like,
controversy
that's what humans
out
look
of
like.
anything, you know. I think that there was a big there was something about that, like her face looking fatter or something like that, but I think there was a lot of talk that I saw brought up around like the hero light around Aloy. Like it seems like there's like she's like glowing a lot of times. I think that's with a lot of the character models too. And to me, the what I took it as was that is literally the literally the lighting from when they were doing the capture for, because like you said, it pretty much is like human faces that you're looking at. But I think they toned that down quite a bit from what I've seen of like the Digital Foundry like tech review and stuff like that. But yeah, Aloy doesn't actually look like Ashley Birch. I don't think that she is the face model, but she is a great actress.
Yeah. But like I know one of the big controversies as well is that Aloy had some like peach fuzz on her face, and I'm like, guys, like, have you ever met a woman before? Like, women have hair as well, right? It's not just blokes; it's women's have hair as well. Two, they're bloody tribes people. It's like they're not sitting there with tweezers plucking out bits of their mustache or like hair's coming out of a mole or something. It's like they're fighting to survive. It's like, oh God, I don't know. But anyway, people are dumb.
Well,
but yeah, just from me, like the gameplay is, if you like the first one, the second one is pretty much the same. You know, it's got all of your traps, all of your different weaponry, all of the different types of machines that are floating around. I've seen a tall neck. You know, we all love the tall necks, the big giraffe ones.
They still got that like Monster Hunter, like cut pieces off of the monsters.
It's got all of that. It's kind of seems a little bit deeper now with the elemental stuff. So like you can't just have ammo for fire arrows and ammo for acid arrows. You need like a bow that can actually fire them. So I've got like quite a few bows in my weapon wheel, which some are like acid, some are like a shotgun bow, which you need to get close to them, but you don't need to draw it back as much. I've got a sharpshooter bow, which you really need to pull back, and it does a lot of damage, like a sniper, basically. So it kind of like there's a lot of stuff to do with the elements. If they've got like a green canister at the back, you know, the canisters on the machines.
Yeah.
If it's green, then if you shoot acid into it, it'll like explode. You know, some of the enemies have like a power cell, a battery. If you shock that certain area, then they'll explode and shock other enemies behind. So like it's really deep. Like, and if you do the combat challenges actually teach you all that stuff as well. So it's a really good idea to go and do the combat challenges in the game as well.
I have one last question about Forbidden West, and that is, did you end up trying out the gyro aiming controls?
Yes, I did. So yeah, they work really well. I would mess around with the sensitivity on it because you're kind of sat in your chair and you're kind of like, suddenly I'm over here facing the wall and suddenly I'm over here facing the door. And it's like, it's kind of like you need to up the sensitivity. So it's just doing that. But I found that, so what I've defaulted to now is that I'm using the buttons to draw back and actually look towards an enemy. But the very final little adjustment to aim towards their head or whatever, I'm using the gyro.
Yeah, that's how it should be. Like, it's like
I'm literally just like tilting the controller to the left to just get that final little bit. The problem with that is that if I get a bit too excited and then let go of the right trigger to, you know, fire or press in the right trigger to fire an arrow, I'll kind of like jolt the controller and it will quickly just go away. So I think you do need to kind of like use either the gyro or the normal aim mode. But yeah, it can jolt you away a little bit because they've got the adaptive triggers on as well, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes with some weapons, you're really pulling back on the sticks a little bit more, and it can pull your controller down.
Yeah,
That's
right.
the that's the only problem I've had with it so far. But it's good. It's good to get that little final bit, especially if you're like me and using a controller nowadays isn't as good for me as using mouse and keyboard because I'm a PC scrub. But yeah,
Scrub.
it's a really good game, and I'm enjoying it. And I've played a lot of open world games recently, which haven't really grabbed me into the world.
Mm.
Um, but I think as soon as you go out into that bigger world and you start doing some side missions and things like that, you're kind of okay. I'm kind of excited about this because it's not just like kind of a Far Cry Ubisoft open world. There's something a bit more to it,
Cool.
which I'm like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
I'm down with it. So I'm down with it.
Hell yeah. I'm really hoping that my copy comes in this week. I really hope it comes in like tomorrow or Tuesday, so I can actually spend some time with the game before Elden Ring.
Mm.
But yeah, come Friday, that's gonna be what I'm playing is Elden Ring. Um, so cool. Then that's great. Are there any other games that you wanted to touch on, or anything else you've been
No,
playing recently?
the only other things I've been playing is Diplomacy is Not an Option,
Mm.
which is a very fun Age of Empires style game, but instead it's all about defense.
Okay.
And you have waves of like tribal enemies that come and try and destroy your base, and you have to defend them every few days or so in game.
Mm.
That's really, really fun. It's similar to They Are Billions if you've ever played
Yeah.
that
Well, I've
game.
never played
It's
it,
not
but I know what it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not as hardcore as They Are Billions. Like They Are Billions, literally one enemy could get through when there was 10,000s on screen, and one enemy coming through could just decimate your base. So
Oh no.
it's not that bad, but it is that style of game,
Mm.
and it's really fun to just go on endless mode and just see
When
how long you can
I
last
saw
for.
you, well, when I watched some of your footage of Diplomacy is Not an Option, it reminded me just a little bit, not too much. But have you ever played a game called Bad North?
Yeah, I have a long time ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was kind of like a very stripped back strategy game where you played as Vikings. It was like,
Mm, yeah.
Vikings, you'd either be defending an island or invading an island, and but again, it was like very stripped back. Like you only had a couple options, like you had a couple different units, and it was very
Mm,
like simple to move around the map and stuff, but they still
yeah.
had like some pretty steep difficulty curves in that game. But just like the bits and pieces I've seen of Diplomacy is Not an Option, it reminded me of that game, a larger scale, with obviously you can have like those thousands, hundreds of
Mm.
enemies on the screen at once, which never happens in
Oh,
Bad North. But
there's so many enemies on screen. It is ridiculous, and it can. The thing is, you won't have enough resources to build a wall all the way around your town, and you don't really want to do that anyway because you're kind of funneling your workers. Once they run out of trees and stone within your walls, then they'd have to
mm,
venture out, and that's dangerous. So you kind of just try at the beginning to try and build up little temporary walls just to fend off a wave because the AI's pathing is basically A to B. So if they're coming down from the north, they will just come down from the north. They won't try and like go round your defenses. They'll try and smash their way through.
mm,
But sometimes there are so many on screen is that my wall isn't wide enough. So I'll have like gaps either side, which is expected because I can't build a full wall all the way around. I don't have the resources. But there are so many units coming in that they're kind of like pushing them,
right.
and the line of enemies is like spreading up the walls, and then and then suddenly they've all gone, oh okay, there's gaps either side of these walls, and then they just come in, then they just like beeline straight in. So I'm like, oh my god. But it's a bit strange really because I was a big fan of real-time strategy games when I was a kid. Like I
Mm,
loved Command and Conquer, I loved Warcraft, I loved all these types of games. And then they kind of reached a point, I think, after StarCraft 2, where RTS games were just not doing well at all. Like people just weren't interested in them anymore, or whatever.
mm,
But this is kind of the new RTS game now, where you kind of build your village up, you build your castle, build your town, and then something will come and attack you, and you need to kind of brave that and force it back and whatever. Instead of having, right, okay, this is a person with exactly the same kind of base building as you, you know, all that sort of stuff, and then just build up and attack each other.
Yeah.
It's like kind of that's gone out of fashion now, but this is kind of rose up, and I think that started with that game Banished. Do you remember Banished?
I don't think I ever played that game. No.
That was like a hardcore base builder where there was no fighting in it, but you would kind of try and build up a village that could brave the winters, horrible cold winters, and then you see how long you can last for and keep your villagers alive and whatnot. And it's kind of like that Frostpunk game.
Yeah, Frostpunk.
You know,
I know. Yeah.
like Frostpunk and things like this is the new kind of RTS that we're seeing now. And you don't see very many traditional RTSs anymore because people just kind of went off them. I didn't, but
Yeah, the Frostpunk actually has always intrigued me, but I'm awful at RTS and those kind of survival games. Like, but they do make they're like, I call them story generators because you do kind of get your own kind of little personal story that comes out of these. More so with games like, you know, RimWorld and like Dwarf Fortress and stuff like that. But yeah, they're
like
games
these super RTSs that have come out. You know, the RimWorld is just ridiculous. You know, and it's kind of like it's kind of those things where like the people, your units, they're not directly orderable, if you like, but it's like you're kind of giving them general
like priorities. You give them
priorities and things, so you can just kind of say this guy's the doctor, you know, he's going to try and heal people, but if somebody's sick and he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing, it's probably because you've set a priority for him to go and cut trees. So he's like, I know that guy's dying, but you told me to cut trees, so I'm cutting trees. So it's like, it's kind of that,
it's a lot of,
you know, you just want to click on them sometimes.
Yeah.
You want to click on them and go, right, no, right click over here and heal. But they're like, I'm just doing what you told me to do, buddy.
Yeah, I'm on a schedule here, friend, you know?
Yeah, I finished work in 6 hours. I got to finish this tree.
Cool. Yeah, so I took like a few days off from like streaming and like content, like editing and shit like that, and I ended up just going through a bunch of games that not even like in my backlog, but a lot of like revisiting games and kind of just like playing through, not really focusing so much on like collectibles and stuff, just trying to have like a couple more like cinematic experiences and just like get through a few games. So I played like quite a few games over the last 2 weeks, but the first one that I wanted to bring up to you, because I don't think you played it, but I think you played the second one, is Nier. Nier Replicant is the remake of Nier, which I think there were actually 2 versions of the first Nier game. There was Nier Gestalt and Nier Replicant, actually, but I think Replicant was only the Japanese version or something like that. I don't know, some weird
what was
thing.
Because I played a Nier game on 360 and it was a guy and his like daughter or something.
Yeah, so that is this game.
Right, okay, so I've played that one all the way through. On the 360.
Okay, so Nier Replicant is that game, but that version of Nier was it might have just been called Nier, but that version was called Nier Gestalt. So in Japan there were still 2 versions of it. There was Nier Replicant and Nier Gestalt, and one of them was the PS3 version and one of them was the 360 version. And the main difference between the 2 versions was that I think for the 360 version they made Nier into a daddy. He was a daddy. He was like a middle-aged guy trying to save his daughter, essentially. And the other version, Nier Replicant, Nier is a lot younger, and you're not trying to save your daughter. You're trying to save your sister. So that's the big difference. So in this remake, they've decided, or not remake, remaster, I guess. They've done away with Daddy Nier. You are Brother Nier in this game, And if you aren't familiar with Nier, it is an action RPG. I would say it has elements of things like Zelda, where you have kind of like an not necessarily an open world, but kind of like an open like hub where several areas connect. You've got your kind of dungeons or temples to go through. But the combat is more on the side of, I guess, like Devil May Cry. And they also incorporate a lot of bullet hell elements into the game where, you'll be fighting against enemies and they're just shooting like lines and lines of little red orbs at you that like float slowly but menacingly. So it's like, you got to decide like, okay, can I get off a couple attacks? Am I dodging? Some of the bullets you can slash through with your sword or shoot with your spells that you kind of have. Other ones aren't affected by certain attacks, so you got to kind of pay attention to that and enemies at the same time. The main thing with Nier, for me anyway, is its soundtrack. Dude, it's got some of the best songs I've ever heard in a video game, and especially in this remaster. I mean, I don't know, I never played Nier on 360 or PS3, so it was not my first Nier. I did play Nier Automata, but that was that was my first Nier experience, and that is technically the second game in the franchise. So Nier Replicant, the remaster, is my first time with the first Nier game. So I know that the soundtrack got remastered as well, and dude, I would almost say play this game for the soundtrack alone, because having it full blast in your headphones, like, dude, it is like uncomparable. There's like, you can't stand that soundtrack up against anything. It's so unique. Like the songs, the singing, it like combines like opera and techno, and like, man, it's so good. In fact, I showed Happy one of the songs that like really stood out to me, because I thought that she would appreciate it. And man, you got to listen to some of these songs. But you did play Nier Automata, right?
Yes, I could say yes, but I didn't play through much of it. Maybe one or
Yeah.
maybe 4 or 5 hours, something like that.
Oh, okay. So that's the other thing I was gonna get into with Nier as a franchise, is that my first playthrough of Nier took me about 30 hours, right, to get from the beginning to the end. And that was doing pretty much every side quest that I came across, and specifically trying to collect every weapon in the game, which essentially requires you to do most of the side quests. So it took me about 30 hours. But with Nier and with Nier Automata, getting to the end of the game is only just the beginning, pretty much. I think Nier Automata has 26 endings, which one for every letter of the alphabet. And a lot of them are silly, like just stupid things that you can get in any of your main playthroughs. But usually, like with Nier Replicant, there's 5 endings: A, B, C, D, E. And so once you beat the game, it starts you again at the halfway mark and basically tells you, okay, do it again, with very little differences throughout each playthrough until you get to like that final ending segment. This is an interesting approach to a game, at least I think, because I know when I played Nier Automata, I got sick of it after a while. Like I did get all the endings in Automata, but I did, by the latter half of my time spent with that game, I was just done with it. For this one, I played through my first playthrough months ago when the game first released. So now I decided to revisit it and get endings B, C, D, and E, which took a lot less time than I imagined. Actually, I think partially because I did so much on my first run through the game, that I didn't really need to do too much except go through it. You've got to fight like 5 bosses, and then you get to the ending again and can do the different stuff.
How long do you think that would have taken? Because I remember playing all the way through it on the 360, and then I played, I think, a bit more of it, but I don't think I got the next ending. So you're saying that you did all 5?
Yeah, I did all
endings?
5. So I think my total time with the game is probably somewhere around between 40 and 50 hours. It probably
Damn.
took me an extra 10 hours, 10 to 12 hours to get the rest of the endings. Which I think it goes by kind of fast. Like if you keep your level and stuff like from playthrough to playthrough. So, if you ended your first playthrough at level 30, you're going to start playthrough B at halfway through the game at level 30, which means that a lot of those things that you encountered, you're just going to be one-shotting most of the stuff. So, like, I think if I were to look through my trophy list over the last couple days with Nier, I think I've gotten most of the speedrun trophies for a lot of them are like beat this boss in under 5 minutes or beat this boss in under 3 minutes and stuff like that. And I got most of those without even trying, just because, like, by the time that, if you're going for all the endings, the third or fourth time that you fight this boss, you are just going to blow right through them. So it doesn't feel as grindy as maybe, you might think. I think that the big problem with Nier, and they try to make an excuse for it in game, which I still think doesn't justify it, but you're running around all over the place in this game. I mean, think Zelda, right? Like, you have your Hyrule field, but there's no real way to fast travel from, one town to the other. Eventually you do unlock a boat that you can take to different designated fast travel points, but they're never near the places that you need to be going. So even though you're getting a little bit closer to your destination, you still have to, like, traverse this big open field to actually get to where you are. And I thought, so at one point in the game, when you get to playthrough 5, right, the final playthrough, it's the only time the game starts you back at the very beginning. You don't start at the halfway point. All right, and so, which was kind of cool too, because again, it's been months since I played through that first half of the game, and every time you beat the game, you're only seeing the second half. So, so my first time through the second half of the game, I was like, oh, this is, like, I forgot I even did a lot of this stuff. But then I was like, oh man, I'm just flying through it. Then you get to that final part, and it's like, oh man, I forgot that this was even a boss in this game, because it was in the first section of the game that I haven't played in forever. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, as I'm playing, at one point, there's a line of dialogue where the Nier is talking to his companion, which is this floating book that, like, basically serves as your Dante guns. Like, it floats over your shoulder. And
So the
like,
Grimoire Vice or whatever it's called?
Grimoire Vice.
I haven't played this game for like 12 years, right? But for some reason I remember that.
Grimoire Vice, to be fair, is a memorable character, and I think they are in Automata as well. But yeah, so Grimoire Vice, or Nier says to Grimoire Vice, like, dude, this is kind of like tiring, like running all over the place, Like, I wish there was like, isn't there, like, there's gotta be a spell to warp between places, and Vice is like, yeah, there is that spell, but, like, no one's ever been able to do it without, like, coming out the other side of a warp just in pieces, essentially. Like, any wizard who's ever tried to warp has turned into mincemeat, essentially. And I'm like, well, that's cool that they put, like, some sort of in-world explanation for why we can't fast travel, but, like, can I please fast travel? Like, please? Like, I don't need it to be built into the lore of the game. I just want to be able to fast travel.
Definitely.
But yeah, that was an interesting one to revisit, Nier. And I do think that it's a good game, but it asks a lot out of you, I think. Like, if you're trying to see all the endings, you need to get all the weapons, which means you need to do all of the side quests, which means you're gonna be running around everywhere because, again, there's no teleporting, and the fast travel that you do unlock doesn't unlock until halfway through the game anyway. So it's just it's a lot. And
Yeah. I think, like, because I probably played it about 10 years ago, I think, and it very quickly started appearing on bargain bin shelves
yeah,
in the UK. So probably 2 years afterwards, I remember buying Nier for 360, and it was like £5.
yeah,
And I was like, Jesus, this is like a huge like action RPG kind of game. And I remember it not being super well received, but I thought, I usually, some of my favorite games are the ones that get like 6 and 7 out of 10. So
yeah.
I
Near,
thought I'd play it, but I had the exact same problems with it as you did.
yeah,
In the fact that once I got past the first ending and sort of like got put back into a certain, to do it again, I was like, I don't think I'm intrigued enough. I kind of would just prefer to read about it on the internet instead of
yeah,
like
yeah.
actually having to do it all again.
hmm
But fair play, hats off to you for doing it.
Yeah, it was not super well received here either. Again, yeah, it was kind of lambasted for being generally ugly to look at, which I mean,
Yeah.
I never played the original version. I just know that it very quickly became kind of like one of those cult games that um a lot of people I know that like are kind I don't want to call that, like, I don't want to say it's a video game snob game because it's not necessarily, but it was a game that I would see people post like the songs of the soundtrack of a lot. And I remember always thinking to myself, like, man, I kind of wish I had played this game because I didn't realize it had so much of an impact on so many people with its soundtrack alone. The remaster is definitely prettier to look at. It's not pushing any bars as far as the visuals go, but it does run in 60 frames per second, and the combat feels great. I think that the main things with Nier are probably its fast paced combat and its soundtrack. But again, if you've only played Nier Automata and you're going into Nier Replicant, which is the newer released but the older game, the combat is not as complex or refined as it is in Automata. So you might be put off by that if you've only ever played Automata, because it is not that game. It is still pre-Automata. But I had a lot of fun with it, and I am glad that I was able to get the full story. Once I got that final ending, I was like, yeah, man, I'm satisfied. Uninstall,
Yeah.
But so that's that game. The only other game that I really wanted to bring up, and I'm not that far into it, so I'm not going to spend that much time talking about it before we jump into our main topic, because we are almost an hour in, and I would like to switch gears soon. But I do want to talk a little bit about Backbone, the game Backbone, which I just started playing last night. And Backbone, if you're not familiar with it, it is available on Xbox Game Pass. It is a point-and-click detective game. I think it takes a lot of cues from Disco Elysium. But the kind of twist with this game is that it is Disco Elysium meets Zootopia, where all of our characters are why can't I say that word? Anthropomorphic. Okay, that word. They're all human animal people, basically. Anthropomorphic. Anthropomorphic. There we go.
Anthropomorphism.
Oh, I said afro. Anthropomorphic. Okay, there we go. I said the word. So yeah, it is this like very dark, very noir mystery thriller in the yeah, Afro flick. Exactly. it's a dark story, but it's got this comedic edge to it, and again, it's like it's not that it's hard to take it seriously, but you are watching a bunch of talking animals, get into some like deep shit, and it is presented with these beautiful, like really beautiful pixel graphics, which it surprised me, man. Like there's a point where you end up in like the main town area, and it's like a rainy, dim night. You've got like the neon signs flickering, and that the wetness of the ground, like the reflections and the shininess, it almost didn't look like pixel art. Like it's got this very modern look for a game that is 16-bit or whatever. It just looks gorgeous. But without getting too much into like spoilers, you play as a raccoon detective, or he's a PI, a private investigator, who takes on a seemingly normal case that ends up going off the rails pretty quickly, and he finds himself, neck deep in the crime organizations and conspiracies that are pulling all the strings in this world and in these cities. And this world itself is very interesting. We've got like class systems. It seems like raccoons are pretty low on
the bottom rung.
Yeah, pretty low on the tier list here. And it seems like at the top we've got the apes, and there's like this like weird religion that has formed where like people are like praise the shepherd and stuff like that. So it's got its own lore very much built into this game, and it's very intriguing. As far as gameplay goes, it is essentially it is a point and click adventure, so you are doing a lot of reading, you are doing a lot of clicking on things. There are puzzles to solve where you're shuffling things around, trying to find key items, trying to figure out codes to key locks, and but it's got this kind of like comedic edge to it that Disco Elysium has, but the comedic edge is still very smart. Like it is a very smartly written. So I'm only like 2 acts in, and I think there's like a total of 5 acts or something like that.
5, yeah.
Yeah.
5.
So I'm not very far. I'm maybe like halfway through it. But I gotta say, man, like so far anyway, the game has started off really strong. I mean, since I've stopped playing it I've started playing it yesterday, and since I've stopped, it's kind of been on my mind like all day today. Just like, man, where's it gonna go next? Like, I am genuinely invested in these characters and in this world, and I think that a lot of people, like, I did look up reviews of this game when it was first released, because there was a lot of buzz around its demo, right? This game was released first as a demo, kind of to gather buzz for, I think, its Kickstarter, to like basically get the game out the door, and I think that by the time it was released, the kind of final verdict was that it came out the gate really strong, but peters off a bit towards the end. Is that kind of the general consensus?
That's certainly my consensus of the game, really. It's I had the exact same feeling as you, really, in the fact that the Act 1 is so good, and you can tell that this guy had poured his heart and soul into making Act 1, but hadn't done anything else after that. Before releasing the actual demo, because the game was in flux for a very long time.
Right.
But people were like, this demo is amazing. Like, I want more, I want more, I want more. And it does seem that he kind of like rushed it out just to get it out, to get some money, I suppose. But like, I know there's been a couple of comparisons to Disco Elysium, but this game is pretty much a point and click.
It is
game,
much, yeah. There's no stat system like Disco Elysium has.
It's not open either. No. It's pretty linear,
Yeah.
The thing that I really like about the game is what you touched on, is the lore aspect of it. I think that the fact that it's not just animals for the sake of being animals in a city is there's actual law reasons behind why that is the case and stuff. So,
Yeah.
which I'm sure
Yeah, there's like a
you'll
whole
find out.
history to
Um,
uncover and stuff. Yep.
and I absolutely like this game is worth playing from start to finish. I will absolutely say
Mm.
that because it is really good, and I like the lore. You've just got to know what you're getting into. You're getting into a very, unfortunately, a very generic point and click. And when we say point and click, that's pretty much all you're doing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for me, it seemed that there was going to be more to the game from playing Act One. I thought that was going to be in Act Two and onwards,
Mm.
but it's not. It kind of gets rid of all of those mechanics introduced in Act One, and I think
Right.
that shows how
Oh,
the game's run. But I think
sorry,
it's absolutely worth playing through start to
my
finish.
internet had a little hiccup there. We should be good now.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry about
Oh,
that.
okay. But yeah, I absolutely think that you should play it start to finish.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you'll
Oh,
you'll
yeah,
finish it plush because I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah,
think
I will
you'll enjoy
finish it. Like I said, I have enjoyed what I'm enjoying the story, and I'm enjoying the characters, and I'm enjoying the world. I have already noticed the abandonment of some of the mechanics that were introduced. Like Act One, very very quickly introduces that you can like sneak around, you can crouch and sneak and stuff, but it's kind of underutilized. There's a few points where you do need to use it, but Act 2 hasn't had any of that. It's kind of just very much like, find the people, talk to the people, let the story progress, and
Yeah,
thankfully,
I won't say anything about that, but I'll let you
yeah. I
find
mean,
out
I've
what.
still got quite a bit to go before I really fully experience the game. So I'm reserving judgment. I know where my expectations are for this game though, and
Yeah.
I'm not expecting it to be the next Disco Elysium. It is very like, if you liked Disco Elysium, you may like this game's tone and this game's sense of humor, but
Yeah.
this is, again, like, this is light. There's no stats, there's no like stat checks where you need to hope that the dice is in your favor or anything like that. This is very much like you progressing through a linear story with
I think as long as the expectations of playing it is that it is a traditional point and click, it looks very nice, it's got a cool story, it's got a cool like background lore, but it's got very little in terms of mechanics. If you treat it like basically a visual novel, then you need to expect that. If you go into it, and unfortunately it does misguide you a little bit with Act One, because you have a lot of things like puzzles, you have stealth, you have all this stuff, and unfortunately it's not quite what you have in mind after playing Act One. Because I was exactly the same as you. As soon as I finished Act One, I finished playing games for the day or whatever, and then I remember the next day just thinking about it all the time, like, oh, I really want to play Act Two, because I know that everything that we've seen in Act One is going to be like, Act Two is going to be great.
Elevated,
and there's going to be another 3 acts after that. So yeah, it wasn't. And like, I didn't read any of those reviews either. I only looked into it afterwards, like, thinking, that was a bit weird, actually, in terms of the gameplay and whatnot. So
Backbone, when I had heard about Backbone, because it generated a lot of buzz with its demo, and it was on a lot of people's like look out for this game list. And then when it did finally release, there was this, like, I don't want to say backlash or even controversy.
It was like deflation.
Yeah,
it
exactly.
Was
it was almost like,
oh, it's a shame.
Yeah. And again, I didn't like. None of the game has been spoiled for me. Nothing like that. I just know that for a lot of people, it ended up being a disappointment. But I, again, know where my expectations are, and hopefully I'll have this game finished within the next week, and I'll give you what my closing thoughts are on it for the next show.
I think it's good that you have those expectations. And I think it's good for people that have played the game to tell people that, because, there's that free demo is still out there. And if you play it, you're going to be thinking, wow, this is absolutely incredible. And people need to say, look, before you actually buy this, or, I know it's on Game Pass, so you can play it without much risk, but before you play it, just know that this is a visual novel. This is not going to be the mechanics that you saw in Act One aren't going to be there in the rest of the game. So, as I think you're going into it now with the right expectation. I think you'll enjoy it because of that, because you won't be, like I was expecting,
misled. Yeah.
these huge grand whatever. But yeah. No, I'm looking forward to see what you think about the whole thing.
Cool. So then, without much more delay, let us switch topics here.
Well, maybe we can have a little delay for us to have a little wee.
You know what? Yeah, I'll make room for one more delay. Not that we've delayed anything, but yes, we are going to take a little bathroom break, and when we come back, we will start talking about today's topic, which is difficulty in video games and some of the hardest games that we've ever played, and other things too. So yeah, we'll be back in a few minutes.
Spoiler alert, there's no hard games for me, okay? Every game for me is easy.
This guy,
all right?
This guy.
All right?
Didn't even
VGB.
beat Fist yet. He didn't even beat Fist yet. Get out of here. Go to the bathroom.
I put my fist through my monitor playing that game.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, we'll be right back, guys.
Cool.
While we wait, let me play some music for you. Hold on. Should we do Hollow Knight Lo-Fi? Yeah, I'm gonna do Hollow Knight Lo-Fi. Hollow Knight Lo-Fi. Come on. Nothing better than Hollow Knight Lo-Fi. Okay, I'm gonna use the bathroom too. I'll be right back. Ready for action. So what's up, Stroby? How are you? Hello, Rafa. Welcome in. Thank you for being here. Hello, Happy, my wonderful mods here hanging out. Eric, I see you. I saw you. Just want to acknowledge all the little cuties in chat, and thank you, of course, for hanging out with us today. This next half, I guess, or next 2 hours of the show, possibly 2 hours, is a conversation that I've been looking forward to, because I don't want to say that this is a controversial topic, but it is definitely one with a lot of different opinions behind it. And yeah, I'm excited to see not just what you guys think about video game difficulty and accessibility, but oh my God, is that
my little call? That's my little call to say that I'm back.
Hello. All right, let me
just do a little suckling pig into the mic.
Oh my God, this friggin' guy. All right, let's get our faces back on here. There we go. Hello. Hi, Zub.
How
was your bathroom break? Was it good?
It was fine. I saved time by not washing my hands, okay?
Ew.
Yeah,
go.
I'm only kidding.
Yeah,
I'm only kidding.
I know. Although I wouldn't.
I just lick them clean like a cat. Right.
Okay.
So difficulty, Plushy.
Yes, difficulty in video games. So to start off this conversation, right? I think the best way to start this off is just by simply asking you, what are some of the hardest games that you've ever played in your life? It doesn't matter the genre, it doesn't matter the year or when it was in your life that you played this game, but to this day, you will always remember this experience as excruciatingly difficult, and maybe you didn't even beat the game at all. So give me a few. What do you think about that? What's
Well,
hard for you?
it's strange, really, because we grew up in a time where games were hard because games were about 30 minutes long and they needed to be hard to
Right.
drag them out to like 12 hours.
Mm.
So, there's a lot of games from the SNES era which, were ridiculous. I never really was around for the NES era, so it kind of from the SNES and Sega Mega Drive for me forward, or Sega Genesis for you guys. So I think that the hardest game that I ever played on the Super Nintendo, I thought that there was a really cool looking game called Battletoads,
Oh boy,
which I
yeah.
was like, oh my god, this game
Ugh.
looks amazing, and it's made by Rare as well, who
Mhm.
are really really cool British developer.
Oh boy.
And it turns out that they wanted to, make me rip my hair out. So Battletoads was kind of a side scroller, a beat 'em up kind of game with all of these different mechanics interspersed in different levels. And I played it, and Jesus Christ, like I think I was always stuck on that hoverboard level, which
That is the wall. That is like one of the most
that is the
infamous
wall, yeah.
video game levels of all time. And if you're not familiar with it, it's, I think, the sewers level.
Yeah.
You get these hover bikes, and you basically just have to dodge obstacles as they fly towards you at light speed. And I don't think that any of us beat that level as a kid. If you're telling me you beat that level when you were a kid, I'm calling you a liar. I'm calling you a liar right now.
So yeah, this level basically, it was side scrolling again, but it was kind of 2.5D where you could go up and down the kind
Right.
of path of the sewer as well. And the problem with it is that these big kind of like blockades would come at you, so you had to kind of go up and then down to like
Right.
dodge these blockades, and then they would come at such a speed in different intervals. At some point it was like kind of almost like a rhythm game,
Mm-hmm.
where you had to like be absolutely lightning fast on the D-pad to get yourself up and then down and up and down. Like, watch a video of that level and it is ridiculous, and don't watch a speed run of it because you'll feel so inadequate. But yeah, it was just ridiculous. Like, that game was just it was like, it was cruel. It was cruel,
yeah.
that game.
I mean, it wasn't even just that level either. I mean, the whole game is really really freaking hard. But it's just that I think for most of us, if you got to that level, you probably didn't get past it, right?
Yeah. No, definitely not. And yeah, I mean, it's just one of those games, like, during that time where they were transitioning from the arcades back to home consoles again, after the big Atari crash and whatnot. They still were in this weird way that they didn't know how to make games properly in
Yeah.
terms of difficulty, because obviously you want to make arcade games really difficult because you want people to put quarters in and put 50p's in, and they keep doing it, and then you make so much money because they're just impossibly hard. But then obviously when they came over to the home consoles, then they're like, still, well, we've been making hard games all our lives, so we're still going to make them hard.
Right.
And it's like, oh my god. But that's kind of that era, which we all know is very very hard, especially a time that was marketed predominantly towards our age, like kids. Like kids that don't have this kind of capacity to do this anyway.
Right.
But then kind of moving forward then into kind of the indie sphere, where there's so many games that come out now that have come out for years which are just purposefully hard.
Right.
Where, like, I'm talking about stupid things like I Want to Be the Guy, Alt F4, which I played, Jump King, stuff like that, where these games are just designed to frustrate you and designed to be hard and designed to be just huge bragging rights if you can actually do them. And it's like, I played so many games like that
getting
and I've
over
never
it and
finished
things
them.
like that.
Obviously,
Yeah.
getting over it, yeah. And it's just like, yeah, these games just are not for me because they are just designed to frustrate you. And it's like
Mm,
I don't mind going on stream and getting frustrated for a bit,
right.
um, you know,
Playing it on your
and
own
then
time though is like
oh god no, like
I
I would
think I
never sit there
watched
and play that.
I watched you play Jump King, and then I watched another streamer play it for a little bit, and just watching it is painful, man. Like
Mm,
just like yeah, those are not my type of difficult games because it's
no,
yeah, I don't want to just be purposely frustrating myself, you know.
I mean, Jump King was kind of like this weird middle ground where it wasn't like total absolute bullshit, if you know what I mean. Like, I
Mm,
Want to Be the Guy, when that came out, it was kind of like this thing where it's like, haha, this is so funny because this game is just absolutely littered with things that you could never see coming unless you knew it was coming. And the
right.
only way that you can learn it's coming is by falling for it. So there's
Mm,
just traps everywhere, and you die and you die and you die, and you just memorize the whole game and you can get through it. Whereas Jump King is all about its mechanics, and um, in Jump King, all you're trying to do is
just
go
jump.
vertically up, like
Yeah.
as high as you can, as high as you can. All the levels are all vertical, and you just jump up. But the way that they do it is that you charge up a jump in a certain direction, and then you let go of the button, and then he does the jump based on how long you've held down that button for. So you can do little jumps just by
Mm.
tapping, or you can do
And
big
you
jumps.
you
But it's
have
not like
no control once you're in the
no
air.
control. Yeah.
So
So once you're going, you're going, and if you miss a jump, the levels are usually designed where you will just fall and fall, and you'll fall past multiple screens which you've just spent the last half an hour getting up to, and
mm,
you can fall all the way back down to the beginning of the game.
yeah, yeah, you
So
can.
yeah, it's frustrating, but kind of like not in the total bullshit kind of way, you know.
mm,
Um, so yeah, I mean, I've played loads of those kinds of games, but I wouldn't really consider them because they're kind of just purposefully. You know,
yeah.
I could just say that Jump King's
It
the
is.
hardest game I've ever played,
Yeah, it
but
is
it's
important to note that like difficulty in video games is just such a wide blanket, right? Like it's changed so much throughout the eras of gaming. It's had like different like you could focus on different aspects of a video game, and then just focusing in on those things like changes the difficulty. Like Jump King, you're only jumping, but take away any kind of like air control in the game, and suddenly it's very difficult to pull it off. So like difficulty is going to change a lot between genres and eras and stuff like that, so that is
but
important to note.
I was thinking about the question of what's the hardest game that you've ever played,
Yeah,
and it's like it's hard to say because
yeah,
a lot of these games is just like you're just like no, this is just ridiculous, and you just put it down. It's like is that more difficult than Alt F4? Is that more difficult than I Want to Be the Guy? So
yeah.
like I kind of like twisted it to say what's the most difficult game that I've finished,
Okay.
and whether it was bullshit or
or
not.
or even
Um,
extending that, like is alt F4 harder than Battletoads? Like they're different kinds of difficulty, right? Like
yeah, I
can you
mean,
compare them, like
well, yeah, not really. It depends on a multitude of things, doesn't it? It's like, is Battletoads difficult in the way that what happens when you die? Do you get sent back right to the beginning of the game where you got lives, so you can kind of like go back to the beginning of the bit that you're stuck on, and you can
right.
learn it quicker. Whereas Alt F4, you're back to the beginning of the game, but it does have saves in it, so it's like all of those different types of mechanics as well. It's like it's depending on how lenient they are on you in having checkpoints and permanent places where you can right when you die, you're definitely gonna start from here no matter what happens.
Uh
So like I think that comes into it as well. Like if you if I could just use save states in every single game, and like if I was in Battletoads and I'd before the bit that I really really sucked at, so in the sewers level on the hoverboard, if I could put a save state just at that moment and just play that bit over and over again with no fear of going back to the beginning or losing lives,
yeah.
then you're going to do it eventually, and these games are going to get much easier. But games, as we know, don't allow for that. They've got to punish you by wasting your time a little bit as well.
Yeah.
That is my biggest gripe about Dark Souls as well, which we can get onto later. But
Yeah.
the the most difficult game that I've ever finished is
Hmm.
probably Halo 2 on Legendary.
Ooh, interesting. Interesting pick.
Um, yeah, because Halo 1, I played so much on that on the original Xbox as a kid, and like I was running out of things to like kind of. You can only play the campaign on normal so many times, especially Halo 1, which had a few repetitive bits in the
Yeah.
middle. But then I was like, oh, I'll try and play it on the hardest difficulty. And Jesus Christ, I remember periods of my life where it was like, I'll come home from school and I'll play for an hour on Halo. And like the cargo area of the Truth and Reconciliation ship, the mission where you've got to go and save one of the UNSC commanders or whatever,
Dudes.
one of the dudes.
Hmm.
And you go into this ship and there's just loads of these elites with swords and whatnot. And on Legendary, that is just terrible. Like an elite with a sword is just like instant death. And then I think they chucked two or three at you at the
Oh
same
my
time.
god.
And the AI can't
Yeah.
do anything on Legendary. Like they shoot for a bit, but their weapons don't do any damage against the shields. They die immediately because the enemies are much more aggressive. They don't take cover against your AI mates. So whenever you've got AI on your team in Halo 1,
Hmm.
they just get decimated straight away. But then Halo 2 came out, and there was this massive rush at the end, like loads of development crunch to get it out through the door.
Hmm.
And because of that, and because of the selectable difficulties, they kind of made it for one difficulty and then didn't really think about Legendary at all in terms of its balance. So they were just like, right, ship it out the door. Um, just increase health and damage and whatever. And
Right.
and that was Legendary. And Jesus Christ, it was the most bullshit
Oh man.
campaign I've ever played in my life.
Huh.
Where and they couldn't patch it. This was a time on
Right.
the original Xbox, so you can't patch games back then. So it was what it was. And I thought, oh, I'll do my challenge again after playing through Halo 2 multiple times and multiplayer and whatnot. And then yeah, I started playing it, and Jesus Christ, like there were so many scenarios, so many battles, so many fights that were just so against your favor. It was ridiculous.
Mm.
Like it was just unfair. You had to try and find little cheesy ways of getting past it.
Yeah.
And the worst thing about it was the sniper jackals.
Oh my
The
god. Yeah.
the sniper jackals, right? They're basically just sniper enemies, but they as soon as you would come out of a building, they would see you straight away and they would shoot you with 100% accuracy. Somebody on the internet explained it as uh, you're in a Call of Duty montage, but you're the one being killed,
Oh
like
man.
just over and over again. And literally, they would just if you learn where all of the jackals are, you can kind of like you know inch out of like your piece of cover and try and get a shot on them. Um, but you could see it, if you had your own sniper and you would inch out, you could see them. They could be facing the other way. They would immediately turn around with no animation towards you and just fire. And you would just be boom, gone.
Dead.
And if you forgot about one of them, the checkpoint system is so weird in Halo that sometimes I would kill one of the jackals in an area and be like, oh my God, like I've actually killed one. And then I'd run back and just wait and hope to the Halo gods that a checkpoint would be made, because the Halo just had this weird checkpoint system where sometimes it would give you checkpoints, sometimes it wouldn't.
Hmm.
And sometimes it would give, even if you walk back like in the level, it would give you a checkpoint. Like sometimes it would, sometimes it wouldn't. So, and I made it through that whole game on Legendary, and it
Now
was
that
probably
gets you a VGB badge. That's a true video
hell
game
yeah.
boy moment. Beating
Oh, and it
Halo
was
2 on
solo, okay?
Legendary. Oh, and
Yeah,
solo.
that was solo. It wasn't this bloody co-op cheese where somebody stays in the back and then everybody can respawn as many times as they want. No, no, no. Solo. All right.
Okay. Everybody
So,
clap. Everybody clap for VGB.
everybody clap,
Show.
please. Please
Clap,
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 clap, clap, clap.
Yeah, that is a good pick and an interesting pick, because I think that kind of that achievement, right, of beating Halo 2 on Legendary, that kind of is like a legendary video game accomplishment, like it's one of those things that like
Yeah.
oh well, yeah, but did you beat Halo 2 on Legendary like I did? Like
Yeah.
there's one of
And
those
it's a
things.
meme, isn't it?
Yeah, you're kind of like, yeah, okay, you're one of those guys, but I can't really fault you for that because that is an
And I
accomplishment.
loved it when Halo 3 came out then. And I was like, oh, do I really want to do Legendary again? And it was probably the easiest Legendary mode I've ever played in a Halo game. And I was just
Now,
like, oh,
like
thank God.
again, like I don't. It's interesting to me because I don't necessarily associate Halo with difficult. Like it's
Mm,
not like because when I used to play, well, I didn't play really Halo campaigns very often. Most of the time when I played Halo at a friend's house, we were playing multiplayer, and then we
yeah.
would like dip into a campaign for fun and like, but never play. We never really played on Legendary or anything like that. The first Halo game I owned was 3, and I think I probably played it through on like normal mode because I don't know, I just did.
Mm,
But I when I still haven't beat it, but have been on and off playing Halo Infinite's campaign, as you know. Um,
mm,
and I decided to play it on heroic mode because I know that most Halo games are actually designed around the heroic difficulty.
yeah.
But this one is in Halo Infinite is the first game that they designed combat around normal difficulty. So
All right. Okay.
heroic mode is more akin to a legendary mode, and then legendary mode is like I'm assuming like Halo 2 legendary for Halo Infinite. But there have been moments in Halo Infinite where I have asked myself like, am I capable of beating this scenario? Like they throw so much shit at you. A lot of times it doesn't feel like particularly fair, but then you kind of get used to whatever portion of the map you're in where things that you can pick up for like I noticed myself finding like a rhythm. Like I'd be like almost like a small section of like a Mirror's Edge level or something where I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna zip line to here, grab this explosive barrel, hit this guy, that's gonna kill him. I'll zip up here behind the sniper that I know if I go left, he's just gonna headshot me. So like you end up like making like a path for yourself throughout like the base or whatever level that you're in,
Yeah.
and you end up like sticking like you almost like memorize that path to the point where like when you do finally beat that scenario, you pretty much pulled off whatever this choreographed like thing that you've made for yourself like flawlessly.
Yeah.
That it does feel very accomplishing when it feels like an accomplishment when you do pull that off. But there are points in Halo Infinite where I feel like almost like it toes that. There's this line right for difficulty where that I think developers are ultra aware of, right? But they still can't quite get it right, and like
Mm,
and to be fair, it is a very very thin line, so it is hard to get it right on that line,
yeah.
where what
Well,
is fair, like
look at Halo 2, right, where they've
mm,
spent so much time designing it around, say, heroic, where
mm,
it's like Master Chief, he is like an absolute badass. He can take loads of hits and whatever. Well, not too many hits, but he can take
mm,
hits more than the normal Marines. But the Covenant are dangerous as well. And it kind of makes sense in the world where the Covenant are like, you know, if you have multiple elites around you, then even Master Chief is going to die, right?
mm,
So it's like, okay, so this enemy that we're fighting is actually dangerous,
yeah.
but Master Chief is also a force to be reckoned with. So that's like kind of that. But then when you go on to normal and especially easy, it just turns into this like masturbatory power fantasy
Yeah,
where like
yeah, yeah.
Master Chief is just this like god of death that has just been unleashed on this.
um,
I feel sorry for the Covenant.
Well, I was thinking of
Like,
this one moment in Halo Infinite, right, where they're like you're trying to get to the pilot. He's like this new character, and they just unleash these two Spartan killers. That's what they're called, right? And
mm,
so Cortana's like, "Oh man, there's two of them. They're gonna try to get to the pilot." And Master Chief, his line is, "Yeah, well, they're gonna have to go through me first. And I remember the first time for me coming into this scenario, I'm like running in, and he goes, they're gonna have to get through me first, and this grenade just comes lobbing in and sticks to me, and I just insta die. I'm like, well, they got through me, sorry, pilot, you know, like.
But that's the
it's
thing,
funny
isn't it?
when he
It's
talks
like-
about himself like he's, you know, this big force to be reckoned with, but when you're playing on
Yeah.
hard mode, you just get annihilated, you know, like, so it's almost
like,
laughable, like, at points like that, you know.
That's what I'm saying. It's like if I played, if we both played Halo and I played on easy mode, and I'm like, Master Chief is so badass. Oh, you know, they got to get through me first, and I just decimated everybody without even losing a portion of my shield, let alone health.
Yeah, well, that's
And then
not quite fun either. Yeah.
Yeah,
Unless
but
you
then
really
if
want
you
that.
played on Legendary and you're like stuck on the same little fight over and over again, and you're like, you in your head you're going to be thinking, Master Chief is an absolute pussy, and this
Yeah.
Covenant, this like huge, overbearing, horrible horde of aliens are like just so overwhelming and just unfair, and it's just
Mm.
like this, you know, you get a totally different like perception, like representation of the game, which is all because of those difficulty selections, right?
Right.
But I think Halo does it quite well in its difficulty selections, except for Halo 2, which was just rushed. But I remember in Halo 1 that the big difference between heroic and legendary was how absolutely wild and like aggressive the AI was. So, you know, usually you're in cover, you throw a grenade out, they will like roll away and whatever. Instead of rolling away like backwards or to the side, they would like roll towards you so they can keep running at you, you know? And it's like, you know, grenades would come in and they just like, they want to kill you.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that's a good difficulty increase where, okay, right, the AI know exactly where you are. They are a pretty good fighting force, like tactically and whatnot. So that's going to be the difficulty, you know?
Yeah.
I know they did do a bit in terms of like, you know, the damage that enemies do and the shields, like the amount of shields that elites have and whatnot. And it kind of had to change up your play a little bit because you had to use plasma pistols, you know, where you never use plasma pistols on easy mode because they suck. So like it's that kind of thing where that kind of difficulty is good, I think, when you got difficulty selections. But
Yeah.
I'm always a bit wary about, okay, I've got this new game, nobody's played it, nobody knows what the difficulties mean. If I play this game on the hardest difficulty, is this just going to be an unbalanced mess? Am I gonna hate the game because of it? Or if I play it on a too easy mode, am I just going to get bored of this game too
when
quick?
I get offered the like option of like, normally, you know, there's 3 to start off with. You get easy, normal, and hard, and then eventually you unlock a very hard or whatever, right? My first thought is usually like, what is the intended experience? You know, I'd kind of like to know that, and a lot of times, you know, the game itself will kind of add a little like, if you're familiar with first-person shooters and like, you know, or you're new to the series, like you pick this mode and blah blah blah. But like, I don't want to pick hard mode if it's like, you know, intended to be like something like, you know, extra, where it's like, you understand how the game works now try out hard mode. Or did you design your game like, am I gonna get a better experience with hard mode, you know, than normal? Like, there are games that I choose hard mode over normal mode. For Fallen Order, for the Star Wars game, right? I chose to play that on hard mode because they seemed like they had intended this game to be almost like a Souls-like experience, and I was playing through it on normal, and I was just like, this isn't hard, you know? If this game is supposed to be hard, then I need to increase the difficulty to get the intended experience, because
I played that game on hard as well, and like, it was because it was the whole Soulsborne thing, and it's like, I don't really want like an easy experience if it's going to be one of these types of games, you know, because otherwise I'm just going to get bored. So I was like, okay, let's do hard. And then I thought the game was pretty manageable until you get to the bosses. Every single boss in that game is like Jesus Christ. It's like
Yeah.
it's like a Dark Souls boss on crack. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, that was the boss fights were that yeah, I feel like that game did have a bit of balancing issues because even on hard mode, the fodder and like, you know, enemies you encounter throughout the levels, they're all pretty much pushovers, but you get to those boss battles and suddenly it is full Sekiro. Like you need to nail your parries, you need to be like on point, memorizing their moves and
Yeah.
you know, like it was a jarring kind of like almost like whiplash that you would get between the normal gameplay and the boss battles in that game. So I don't think that difficulty was handled like super well with that game, but it is nice to have that option. It's just always in the back of my mind like what actually is the like intended experience, which you know
You'd always consider that to be normal, right?
you would. I
It's
would.
in
Yeah.
the case of the definition of the word.
Right, right. But
But I think that that's the problem as well, isn't it? Is that normal for you and me might be different to normal to somebody else, you know? And
exactly.
it's like somebody who might be new to games, somebody that might be older, somebody that might, you know, have some physical ailment that, you know, prevents them from playing games on normal
Mm.
because, you know, they can't react quickly enough for whatever reason.
Yeah, well,
So it's like,
accessibility is a whole other angle of
yeah,
this conversation where it's like that developers they have been keeping it more in mind lately, like, you know, accessibility beyond just difficulty too, but like, you know,
yeah.
like all around has improved a lot over the last few years for video games, but accessibility for as far as difficulty goes is even still more touchy because at what point is it like infringing on the, you know, the creative process? Like when
Mm.
does the game need to be accessible? Like maybe it's a game that doesn't want to be accessible, and that's a whole other aspect of the conversation, right? Like
Yeah, I think as long as I think the way to like for everybody to be happy is to have as much accessibility options as you can in a game.
mm,
It's like Stroby just said that Horizon Forbidden West does have a story mode. It's like,
mm,
you know, and a lot of games have done that recently
yeah,
where it's like story difficulty, which is basically one less than easy, where if you just want to play this like a movie and not have to
yeah,
worry at all about combat and whatnot, then you can just pick that difficulty and then you'll just breeze through the game, which is
right.
like it's fine if people actually want that, you know.
Hmm.
It's not affecting me because I won't choose that mode anyway,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. It's an
And it's
option, you know.
yeah, and people again might need that story mode not just because that they don't really like combat in video games or whatnot, or they're worried that they can't do it. They might physically not being able to do it, you know.
Exactly.
So I think it is important for that, but they need to developers need to make sure to say this is the experience that we designed the game around, right? So
Hmm.
if you're going to go any easier than this, you might find the game, you know, you might potentially they will never say this, but you might potentially find it a bit boring because you know you're not being challenged enough
Right.
throughout the whole game.
Exactly.
But if you go any harder than this, you might find the game frustrating because you know
Mm.
you're probably not going to get past the first boss or whatever.
Um, so wait, really quick, I wanted to tell you, I thought about like what is like the single hardest game that I've ever played, and that's tough because
Mm,
again, as we've already established, difficulty has changed throughout the gaming eras, and you even said like you wanted to pick a game, the hardest game that you've completed, and
mm.
I've completed some tough games, but for my pick for the hardest game, I didn't come anywhere close to beating it because it was too hard. Um,
Mm.
and I have a couple games that I think are like really difficult, and handle it well, but um, dude, Ninja Gaiden 2 for
Hmm.
Xbox 360.
Yeah,
My god.
I played that game.
I have friends who love that game, who like played the shit out of that game when it released on 360, and I would watch them play, and I'd be like, damn, this game is cool. You're like cutting people's arms off, and like it's like Devil May Cry, but like gorier, you know. And I had played Ninja Gaiden Black with my cousin like years before on the original Xbox, so it was cool to see like a bunch of my friends playing Ninja Gaiden 2, but I never owned it, right? I had only ever watched them play it. Then it got added to Game Pass, and I don't think it's on Game Pass anymore, but for a while it was. And if you played it on a Series X, it was almost like the game got a full remaster, because it would play in 4K. It played in 60 frames per second. It just like it looked great. But dude, that game, I got to, I think, the third level, and every step along the way was excruciating. I was just dying. I was eating through items. I couldn't figure out how to like properly parry or do combos. Like, I've never been put through the ringer in an action game like that. And I've played Devil May Cry 3, which I also think is one of the hardest games I've ever played. The original in the West was like the harder version of Devil May Cry 3, and then eventually they released Special Edition, which tweaked some things and made it easier. But like, dude, Ninja Gaiden 2, I to this day I haven't beat it, and as many times as I thought to myself like I would love to go back and try to get further in it, I just think of how much pain that game has caused me, and it's a lot. Like, that is
I didn't get very far in that game because I think I played it at, I think, my cousin's house. I think it was a similar thing. And he had an Xbox with loads of games for it, and like it was like, oh, this looks cool. And then I was like, whoa, this game is like ridiculously hard. So like I wasn't going to play it all the way through anyway, even if I, did want to get into it. But yeah, I mean, Ninja Gaiden is just
Are you
ridiculous.
a fan of the Devil May Cry games? Have you played?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Like I played 2, 3. No, I played 1, 3, 4, and 5. I did play a bit of 2, but I was like, what is this game? This is absolute wank. But I loved Devil May Cry 1 was the first game I got for my PS2.
Oh.
And I didn't have a memory card.
Oh.
So I had to play through that game like over and over again, like from the first level. I always remember getting to the spider and then being like, oh, I should really go to bed now. I've got school tomorrow or whatever. But I remember fighting that spider on normal mode. And then it's usually the place where players will find out about the secret easy mode of the game.
Yeah.
But if you die to the same enemy over and over again, the game goes, do you want us to, switch us to easy? Because you're a bit shit.
They did that in 3 as well. No. And it was like in 3, it didn't matter because easy mode was still way too hard. It was like their normal mode was like very hard mode, and then easy mode was like normal hard mode. It was it was ridiculous. But eventually I did get through Devil May Cry 3 because with the I think they did like the HD collection of 1, 2, and 3, and I got that and I just played through like all 3 of them in one go pretty much. And yeah, it is still tough, but I'll always remember Devil May Cry 3, getting it when it first released over here and being so excited. And I think I got to the Cerberus boss, which is like the second boss in the game, and just like I couldn't understand. I was like, what did I do wrong? Like, why can't I beat this? No matter what I do, I cannot beat this game. But for me, I think Ninja Gaiden 2 is a standout for me as just like a blemish on my video game history. Like, I just cannot deal with that game, and I've played all 3 Dark Souls games and Bloodborne and Sekiro, and like I just got Ninja Gaiden 2. I can't do it.
Well, it was following the one of the hardest games for NES as well. Probably one of the hardest games ever considered to.
It's a game that has a reputation of being a hard game, which is fine. Again, this is that, like, I'm not asking them to to like change the fundamentals of what a Ninja Gaiden game is. Like, I do wish that I could get through the game, but it's not that I wish that the game was easier. I just wish that I was better at it, really.
I do remember, though, with Ninja Gaiden 2, I remember when I was playing it, the frame rate was very dodgy.
That's been fixed if you play it on modern hardware.
But yeah, I mean, the original game, there was big complaints about the frame rate,
Definitely.
which in a action game like that, you really don't want frame rate drops and things like that, because it's all about precise button inputs and all that sort of stuff. But there was also a lot of especially in the later part of the game, there was a lot of complaints about the fact that it didn't really matter about player talent. The game was like actively out to kill you.
It sure seems like it.
Yeah, so I think like a lot of people did say this is kind of hard for hard's sake. So I don't know how. I'm sure Ninja Gaiden 2 fans would be like, "Oh, you just don't understand" or whatever. Yeah. But again, I remember that a lot of
difficulty is like this crazy thin line, and it's so easy to go from like being hard but fair to like just being like unfairly hard. And
but people are very proud about their gaming ability as well, and if there's a chance that they're lying about that, they will try not to to say they will just push through. But it's funny that Ninja Gaiden 2 had all of these complaints about the game being a bit unfair towards the player, but then Dark Souls nobody ever has complaints about Dark Souls and its fairness. So it just goes to show, doesn't it?
I want to get into Dark Souls, but I want to save that for a little bit. But I wanted to bring up two games that are fairly recent that have similar approaches to difficulty, and one you've played and one I don't think that you've played, but they have a very similar concept, but very, very different approaches to difficulty. And I think one pulls it off excellently, and the other one completely misses the mark. And those two games are Returnal and Sifu. So Returnal is a roguelite game, right, that focuses very heavily on different equipment that you get for every run. It's got checkpoints in a sense, right? But every time you die, you are kind of still going back to the beginning. You're just kind of unlocking these like shortcuts as you go.
Yeah.
And then eventually you do make solid progression. But I just think that Returnal handles difficulty in a way that never, at least to me, it never felt unfair. I was able to get through all of Returnal. And it took me a while, don't get me wrong.
It's important to mention that there are no difficulty sliders in that game, right?
There are none. And there's none in Sifu either, which is why I want to talk about both of these games kind of like together. You kind of know how Returnal works, and how different each run can feel because of and even the progression system in Returnal is very natural. It's very like you're gonna pick up a gun. The gun, you've never used this gun before, so it's not gonna have any perks on it or anything like that. The more you play, the better you do. The more your weapon proficiency goes up. So the next time you find this gun, it's gonna be dropped at a higher level. Maybe it'll have some perks attached.
It's one of those weird systems where if you play badly, then the game will get harder.
Kind of.
If you play well, the game gets better, because if you explore, if you beat like that one room where waves of enemies come through, like that is really dangerous to the player when you're not kitted up enough to be able to take that on comfortably. But if you do beat it, you get a load of resources, you get a load of items, you get a load of weapons to choose from.
Right.
But it's got the roguelite aspect to it as well, isn't it? Where you could just have the worst items drop, you could have the worst weapons drop, like no perks or whatever, and then you're kind of hamstrung like artificially.
Right.
But that's kind of the roguelite thing where, you know, it's you got to deal with it, right? It's like, okay, I'm in a bad place right now. I've got to explore a little bit more.
Mm.
It's the same in Binding of Isaac, isn't it? Where
Yeah,
like I really need to use every single part of my knowledge of this game to give myself the best chance of proceeding.
exactly.
But sometimes you'll get a weapon that is absolutely incredible. It's got so much damage on it that it kills everything in one hit. You know, that means I'm getting hit less, so then I'm getting
Yeah.
my
I mean, like
my
a
bar
good
up to level
run,
5.
a good run in Returnal could be as simple as like I went left instead of going right, and I found this great gun, and now
Yeah,
this just made the run. Whereas if I went right first, I could have walked into this like death trap of a room with like shitty stuff. But
yeah.
regardless of whether you have a really good run or a really shitty run, there's enough promise for things to be different and better on your next run that you don't feel that badly about starting over. On top of that,
Mm,
you have other decisions to make, whether it's like, do I want to spend all this time in World 1 and get super kitted up before going to World 2, or I could just jump right to World 2 and kind of put myself at a bit of a disadvantage, but still have a chance to find better weapons and stuff in that world. There's a lot of
yeah.
options that you get in Returnal.
But
Um,
it doesn't waste your time with difficulty. It's not like, you know, the game is like, oh, okay, well, you know, you died at the second boss, so you're gonna have to do the first boss again. It's like, well,
no.
I've learned enough to fight the first boss and beat it, so it should stay dead. And that's what Returnal does. So that boss is it's not dead per
Like, you
se. You
could
can
fight
go
it
and fight it
again.
again,
Yeah.
but you've got a permanent shortcut that's opened up to say, look, like you've done this now, you're good enough to have done this once, so now you get to go over to the next bit
Yeah,
straight
you get
away.
a free pass to the next
Which
level,
I love.
basically.
Like I hate it when games waste my time and call it difficulty.
Yeah.
Like it's
So,
just crap.
with that being said, let me tell you a little bit about Sifu, all right?
Have you been playing
Because
it?
yes, I have been. And well, yes and no, because I don't like it at all.
Oh,
I
really?
think yeah,
Okay.
I think that they 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 got difficulty. This is what kind of inspired me to want to talk about this because they got it all wrong, man. I mean, they have a foundation for something like that could be really special and that I think could be a lot of fun, but they factored in all these weird systems to make the game more difficult in like an artificial manner, and it really restricts you in ways that makes the game not fun to me. So first things first, let me tell you about my kind of expectations from Sifu based on basically the trailers and what they kind of made it out to look like. What I thought we were getting was kind of a free form 3D brawler. Almost think My Friend Pedro with like the kind of interactivity with your environments and like what you could do to enemies that are approaching you, whether it's like this guy's coming up, so I'm gonna punch him a few times, grab him, throw him over a ledge, then I'm gonna pick up this bottle and break this bottle. Like, I thought it was gonna be very flexible and like you'd be kind of like just using the environment constantly to get through these crowds of enemies and stuff. But it is not that. I mean, this game is strict and it wants you to play a specific way, right? So you have your parry, which is fine. Kind of hard to pull off, but you hit block as soon as someone attacks you. You do a parry, you get an opening, and you could get a few hits in. But what the game really wants you to learn is the dodging, which essentially is you're holding block and then you're tilting the left thumbstick down or up to either dodge high attacks or
Ugh,
low attacks.
yeah.
And so that takes a lot of concentration. Because most of the time, just flicking down on the thumbstick will get the job done, but every now and then they throw in a low attack and that's gonna throw you off. Okay, so then we've got the environment. So in the trailers, right, they show things like, oh, like there's a chair, I'm kicking the chair over at this bad guy, he's gonna get hit, and then I'm gonna turn to the left, throw a bottle, someone else threw a bottle at me, I caught the bottle, and that all seems really fun. But it turns out that Sifu, for some reason, has a roguelite system built into it. All right, so every time you die, your character ages. All right, and then you lose a portion of your health, but gain a portion of attack power, basically. So you get a little bit stronger and a little bit weaker at the same time. Then you've got this upgrade tree, right? So every time you die, you have a chance to unlock a skill for yourself. Cool. First things first, though, every time you kill an enemy, you get about 25 XP, maybe, per enemy kill. And the abilities cost about 500 to 1,000 XP per ability. All right, Oof. So that's kind of pricey. So anyway, I'm going through the game. I'm doing good. I die. I'm like, I'm going to unlock an ability. The first ability I want to unlock is environmental mastery, which means now I can do all those cool things like kick a chair at somebody, but I can't catch a bottle when someone throws it at me, because that's a whole other skill that I would have to unlock for another 500 points. Cool. So I unlocked the environmental mastery skill. But what's this? I see something underneath it. It says permanent unlock 5 times. So I need to unlock the ability for 1,000 points, but to permanently unlock it, I need to spend 5,000 more points. So a total of 6,000 points to permanently unlock this ability for all runs. Now, what is a run in Sifu? Is it getting from the beginning of the game to the end of the game? Yes and no, because it's split up into levels, and once you beat one level, you can start at level 2 every single time if you want to, right? But there's a good chance that you're not going to have anywhere near enough abilities to stand a chance in level 2, so you're kind of grinding level 1. And on top of that, if you die enough times and you age to the point where you're beyond 70 years old, that's it. Your run is over. You're dead. So all the things that I've unlocked and stuff, unless I've unlocked it permanently, they're all gone. If I make it from the end of level 1, let's say it took me to age 60 to beat level 1, I can start at level 2 whenever I want, but I'm always going to be age 60 at level 2. So that means...
And when do you die? What age can you go up to?
Basically, as soon as you pass 70, so like you could end up at like 71 or 75, but that's going to be your last life. So it's like not only do you need to beat level 1, but you need to beat level 1 and remain in your 20s, basically, because you need to think about level 5, I want to be able to get to level 5 and not be 70 years old, because I'm never going to stand a chance on the last level. It's just, there's so many things in this game that I feel like they approach difficulty in all the wrong ways. Just every single way that like could have been accessible and like enjoyable about this game, they've gone the opposite way, where and I've seen people be like, well, this is a game about mastering, a martial art or whatever, so it makes sense that the game wants you to master it. But it's like there's just so many like technical, like core fundamental things that I think are wrong with this game, that if you look at Returnal, which has a lot of the same sensibilities but does it in just all the right ways, like I just feel like somewhere along the line Sifu just went way off track, and like it doesn't even like feel fair to fight against crowds of enemies in Sifu, because you have no real way of doing crowd control. It is very much like a 1v1 style combat system. You can flip between enemies, but nowhere near in the sense that you could in like an Arkham Asylum style game, where like Batman is literally doing backflips over one guy to get to another one. It's not like that in any means. But
this is why I hate, like, and it's a new trend that's like seems to be in every single game recently, is the fact that they have this permanent upgrade skill tree thing in these types of games, where there's quite a few games that I've played. Like there's one called Rogue Tower, which is a tower defense game.
Mm.
And it's got this huge like permanent upgrade tree. And like as soon as I saw it, it is absolutely huge, right? I did a video on it not so long ago.
Mm.
But like I'm thinking to myself now, I'm like, okay, so when I start the game, I'm gonna be totally artificially gimped from the start.
Yeah. Yep.
Like they've got like their foot on my head, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And every time I might get to level 3, wave 3, because I haven't got the equipment to be able to deal with some of these enemies. I'm never going to be able to finish the game my first run, no matter how good I play. So then I need to get some more permanent upgrades, but I can't get a lot because I've only killed 3 enemies. And then like it comes to a point where it's basically a deck builder as well, right? So you have all of these cards. You can unlock the cards with the permanent upgrade tree. And then every third wave, you can get you choose from a series of cards that you draw, which can like increase the damage of your towers or can like give you more mana and whatever. But then now that I've upgraded so much stuff, I'm getting a pick of my upgrades every single wave.
Mm.
So it was every 3 waves, but now it's every single wave. So now I'm like 3 times potentially more powerful than I could have been at the beginning, or even just at the point of not having my card drawer upgraded.
Right.
So I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, this is just, I don't know. It's the same with Vampire Survivors. As much as I love that game, it's like when you first play that game, it's like,
There's
oh, I
no
only made it to
chance.
10. Yeah, I only made it to 3 minutes. And
Right.
it's like, and then he's looking at everybody else. This person's looking at everybody else. So, oh, they're getting to 30 minutes every time. It's like, well, no, we've just upgraded our thing, collected gold, and upgraded our stats.
We have our store that that permanent upgrade store. Well, like in Sifu though, the way that they've approached this permanent upgrade system, it's even more extreme. Like you are so gimped from the start, and then on top of that, I'm convinced that the only way to stand a chance in level 2 and get to level 3 with at a good age is to just play level 1 like hundreds of times until you get enough XP to permanently unlock 10 abilities or to get through it without dying, so that you're age 20 on level 2. I've played the opening level of Sifu so many times that I am on level 2 as an age 22-year-old. So that means I've only died twice in level 1. And I'm happy with that, but I've only unlocked 5 things permanently, and it took me forever to unlock those 5 things. And I still...
So what happens if you start a new run? Do you lose all of your progression towards a permanent unlock?
No. So that will, so when you die, again, you can, I'm on level 2 at age 22. And then
yeah, but if you want to give up, say if you got to level 3 at 60 and you're like, okay, this is rubbish, so I'm going to restart the whole run.
So
does that mean
no. So if I started to unlock something, let's say I bought an ability and then I put 2 into its 5 for the permanent unlock, that will always remain at 3 more times.
Well, at least that's Jesus.
Yeah, but it's still because I got to level 3 at age 60, I don't start level 3 at age 20 when I die. I will always start at age 60 until I go back and beat level 2 at a younger age, It's just, and there's absolutely zero RNG or procedural generation in this game. Every enemy is in the exact same spot every single time. All the weapon placement is the same. The only thing that is RNG related is any enemy, it seems has a chance to go what I call turbo mode, which is something I've taken from the original Resident Evil 3, where any zombie could go turbo and move faster towards you than they normally move. So you could be fighting a guy in Sifu and go to like take them down, like do a takedown on them, and then they resist your takedown and essentially have a second life bar randomly. Like I could have killed this guy in 2 hits on another run, but now suddenly he's like all souped up, and it seems like it could happen like with any enemy in the game, which is like kind of interesting and adds a little flair. But the game, I mean, there's no other. It's just one of the most repetitive games I've
I don't know why these upgrade paths, like I understand why they're there in RPGs and things like that, but these like permanent upgrade paths in these like kind of, you know, character action games and like, you know, Sifu had the kind of potential to be like the next Hotline Miami, right?
That's
Where
what I
Hotline
thought.
Miami was was like, you know, all about like I eventually got all the A+ ranks in Hotline Miami just because I started off with very limited knowledge of the game in my head and how the combo system worked and stuff like that. And I learned that by myself, you know?
Yeah.
Not by permanent upgrades, not by
No.
something saying, oh, actually, we're going to start you off on a 2
I
times
thought that
combo here.
Sifu was going to be like the My Friend Pedro or the Hotline Miami meets Streets of Rage that like we've always wanted. Just like using everything in the environment and just kicking ass up and down. And like there's obviously like Hotline Miami is still difficult, you know, but you still feel like a total badass when you're going through the levels of Hotline Miami. But the combat system in Sifu is so strict, and they want you to play such a specific way. It is not the game that I thought it was going to be at all. Like
that's like I just can't understand why like now in all of these kinds of games where they just can't let people use their own getting better at the game to actually as a bit of progression instead of having to artificially like there's a lot of roguelike games which really annoy me in terms of its progression. Like as much as I really like Dead Cells, like even the amount of permanent upgrades in that game is just ridiculous. Like you know, and it's like if you're good but the Dead Cells has that thing where if you are good enough you can kind of slog your way through it, you know, even without a lot of the permanent upgrades. But it's still like I don't know if developers think like, oh, we're kind of easing you into it and then you can choose how to develop your character. It's like it doesn't feel like that. It's like just let me gauge my own skill like straight away from level one and say
wrong. I do feel like with Sifu you could eventually master its combat system and get through the game with like not many upgrades at all. Like if you're but it just feels so like it feels so narrow. It feels so strict. Like, you know, again, I want to feel like John Wick. I want to be just like all over the place, using everything in the room and no.
But I feel like if I died because there's a bottle on the floor and I could have thrown it at that particular point and I couldn't because I didn't have the upgrade, I'd get so frustrated.
Yeah, I mean, you could throw a bottle, right? Like you could always throw a bottle, but if there was any other object in the room that you could potentially use to
I was just using bottle as an example, but like I haven't played the game, but like whatever, like
exactly. I mean,
environmental things. If I could like, you know, if it was right there in front of me, I
couldn't believe that was one of the that was one of the unlocks, because not only was it was 6,000 total XP to unlock it permanently for something that I thought was just gonna be built in to the gameplay of the game, you know. Like
that's just another gripe I think that I've got with that kind of system. Like, and it's a shame I didn't even know it had that system in the game. I was thinking about getting it. I thought it was a bit expensive, but I'm definitely not going to get it now.
That's probably my first, with that. Like I've been doing these like game of the year contenders, just writing up like little think pieces on the fly whenever I come across a game that like I find particularly interesting or whatever. And Sifu is probably my first big gaming disappointment of 2022, and I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up on my list at the end of the year, because it is artificially difficult in my opinion, and on top of that there are just so many baffling design choices that in there, and again, like I compare it to Returnal, which is fundamentally a very different game than Sifu, but like it has a lot of the same
Well,
sensibilities and like
Returnal has the exact same sort of progression as Binding of Isaac, where
yeah.
the only thing you're doing in terms of progressing is unlocking new items that could potentially uh, appear in a run.
Mm,
And it's the same in Binding of Isaac. And actually, you're kind of gimping yourself by unlocking all of these items because you're increasing the pool of items.
right.
So yeah, some of them might be better, some of them might not be so good. But again, like your chances potentially of getting this thing that you actually want every run is going to be less.
Yeah.
So like in terms of that being a progression, it's got its downsides as well as its positives. But these like other games that are coming out now, I see it so much,
Mm,
is it's all just artificially gimping you until you can grind enough currency to actually get into the game proper. Or, how is this designed? Is
so
it, am I supposed to be at the normal point of what I should be at when
mm,
I've upgraded every skill? Or is that going to make me overpowered and it's going to be easy to beat the game?
yeah.
I don't know.
So there's that. And Sifu is so like my stance on this is that like I don't think that there's any harm in having accessible difficulty options, like multiple options for difficulty in games. Like Sifu, I wish there was an easy mode because I think the game is pretty. I think the combat does feel good, but I just think that it's hard for no reason, like or hard in a bad way. And if an easy mode is gonna give me that like make me feel like a badass kung fu dude that I want it to feel like when I got the game, then give me an easy mode, because I genuinely think that the difficulty in Sifu was mishandled. I think that they got it all wrong personally.
Sifu easy mode has been confirmed.
It has, yeah.
Yeah.
They said that they're going to be doing an update that is going to introduce an easy and a harder mode for the people that think the game is too easy, the hardcore boys. But yeah, that was a big rough one. Um, Obviously, the other side of this coin, or probably the game series that people talk the most about, because of its difficulty and whether or not should have easy modes, is the Dark Souls series, um, which I still want to hold off on before we start talking about that, because there is one other type of difficulty I want to talk about before we get into the Souls like stuff, and that's JRPG difficulty. I think it's a different kind of difficulty, right? It's much more about like numbers and planning and thinking, and a lot of times too JRPGs out of nowhere will just like completely upend everything that you've been doing for the last like 60 hours to throw something out of left field. So what do you think about JRPG difficulty? Like for me, I tend to get to the final boss of a JRPG and then suddenly I'm like, what do they want from me here?
Yeah, I feel like most JRPGs just have one difficulty, and it's the developers, you know, uh, choice. It's their kind of balanced, um, their balancing that they put together for the particular game. I know that some games come out with like international modes or whatever. For like Final Fantasy X, for example, I had the expert sphere grid and whatnot,
Mm,
to make the game more difficult. But I I don't really have an opinion on JRPG difficulty just because of the fact that you don't really get difficulty modes in them,
yeah.
and it's just based on player, whether they've understood all of the different mechanics, the stats, if they've built their party right. Effectively, you should be able to prepare yourself for the final fight,
Mm,
and know it's coming. So yeah, I mean, I don't really have too much of an opinion on that because there is only one difficulty, really.
Yeah, so yeah, you don't normally get an option in JRPGs for difficulty, so the game has to be balanced with that in mind. You know, it is very much like on your shoulders to approach the situations in the right way, and that's why I say it's more of like a numbers game. It's a little bit more pulled back. You know, you're thinking a lot more and building your party, but there's a chance that you could build your party wrong, and maybe like an older RPG uh might not give you much chance to like change things up. You know, you kind of have to commit. Um, but I think for the most part that JRPGs handle balance in a way that is fair. They give you most of the tools. I mean, we know that they handhold you for the first 5 hours, no matter what JRPG you're playing.
And the
So
rest, yeah.
yeah, so so that like that's kind of interesting to me is that you know JRPGs only have this one mode for the most part, right? And I don't think that there is a lot of complaints about that, right? Because you're given a set of rules in any given JRPG, and over the course of the game, whether it takes you 60 hours or 120 hours, you're gonna learn all the ins and outs of it, and very rarely is it gonna throw you a curveball. Um, I did play. I was playing Tales of Arise a lot recently, like on and off, and that was one that like they threw a couple curveballs at you a few times, like depending on like for example, most of the game you're playing with a party of four, and then you get to the final boss battle, and suddenly it's just a 1v1, and I'm like, well, what the hell? This is not like I'm not prepared for this at all, you know. So I think it's kind
Yeah.
of interesting when they do throw those curveballs, and suddenly you're reacting on the fly. But some of the
I
most
think the I think the type of RPG that I'd be able to talk about is the Western RPGs
mm,
because a lot of these have difficulties that you can select, like Witcher 3. I had a much better time with Witcher 3 on the hardest difficulty mode than the
mm,
normal mode because you actually had to use all of Geralt's tools at his disposal, like the
yeah,
spells, the potions, the oils, and whatnot. I found that much better, but there's also in terms of the things like Oblivion, Skyrim, things like Assassin's Creed. Now that it's more of an RPG than a
mm.
action adventure,
Yeah, I don't
um,
like when like
it's
well, Assassin's Creed anyway, like a lot it seems like a lot of their like if you increase the difficulty in Assassin's Creed, it suddenly just becomes like super tanky enemies that just it's just like the numbers go up
well, I
kind
was
of,
going
you
to go
know?
more towards the level scaling, that the option whether to turn level scaling on or off.
Mm,
So, like, without level scaling, obviously you just level up, and all of the enemies, the locations have set um, levels,
right.
and obviously you need to be the right level to be able to do more damage to them, or otherwise you're going to do a lot less damage to them, and they're going to do a lot more damage to you. So it kind of gates you from exploring certain areas until you've leveled up. But also they introduce level scaling as well, which means that everybody in the whole world is the same level as you.
Mm.
But at that point, it's like, why
Yeah,
are
I
there
mean,
even levels at that point?
do you
Everything is a consistent level of challenge,
right.
but you don't have any of the benefits
You
that
never
come with
feel
actual
that
leveling.
like you never feel stronger though. Like that's something I genuinely like to feel that in a game. You know, I want to feel that power scale go up. I want to be able to in Assassin's Creed especially. I want to be able to sneak up behind someone and assassinate them. You know, that was one of the craziest changes to me that they made
Mm.
when it was like, you know, you could sneak up behind someone, but if they were too high a level, you know, you'd only do like chip damage with your assassination, and suddenly they turn around and they're like, "What was that? That was like," and then you know you're dead basically. Um, but yeah, I never messed with that option in like Assassin's Creed or anything like that. I also didn't play Witcher. I think I played Witcher on its normal mode, and maybe I should have played it on a higher difficulty because one of my main complaints with The Witcher was its combat. I thought it got really repetitive. You know, it was pretty much dodge slash, use a magic spell, and then just like rotate between the three. Um, which I
Yeah, I
mean,
remember.
it's a big game, so you're doing that a lot. You know.
Yeah, I remember Oblivion. Like it was my first real Elder Scrolls game, which I actually got really into. But the leveling in that game was just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
It was just horrible.
that was horrible. And you'd get
You
chased like
at,
across the map by an enemy too. Like they would not let you go.
yeah, at the beginning, it's got level scaling in the game,
Mm.
so you're always kind of the same level. But actually, you leveled up wrongly, you could actually become weaker and weaker as you leveled up because of
Mm.
the amount of stats and things. And so at the start of the game, you get like major skills and minor skills, and if you're leveling as a certain class, I think it was something like if you didn't put minor skills into or level up minor skills before you actually leveled up. So you can choose when to level up in this game. You get a prompt to say you can level up now, but you can choose when you actually want to level up, and you have to go to sleep to do it. But if you leveled up wrong, basically you would be missing out on extra stat upgrades. And as you leveled up, if you were kept doing it wrong, and it wasn't quite obvious what you should be doing. The game just told you to level up every now and then.
I'm sorry, which game was this?
Oblivion.
Oh, Oblivion, right.
Yeah. So like you would level up, and if you leveled up wrong, you would actually be getting weaker relative to the enemies um as you were going along in levels. And you could be at level 50 or whatever the max is, and you could be severely under leveled for the enemies that are supposed to scale up with you.
That was a weird.
It was like it was an awful system.
Yeah, they had a very weird. That was like it would be like the more you jump, your jump will level up, right? Like your acrobatics would go up.
Well, that was another problem if you didn't know about the game, and I didn't when I first played it. But I didn't realize that the major skills that you pick are the only way that you can level up. So you need to level up those to level up your character. But your minor skills as well, they level up, and they add like a few extra stat bonuses to when you actually properly level up. So to play it optimally, you needed to upgrade your major skills a little bit. Then you need to upgrade your minor skills, which you chose. You know, it might be lock picking or something like that. So you might have to go around the world looking for lock picks and things. And then you'd have to go back to your major skills. But you're not thinking that in an RPG. You just want to go around, do quests, and just level up.
You don't want to crunch numbers the whole time, you know?
Yeah, but also if you pick the wrong major skills, if you picked like magic based ones and then decided halfway through the game that you want to be like an archer, then you're pretty much out of luck. You're never going to level up because you're never going to level up your magic. So it was a very weird system, and it very quickly got deleted from the gaming sphere.
So what now, as you know, okay, you might know this, you might not know this, but I happen to have this little thing, right? This little thing. It's called the the platinum trophy for a little game called Bloodborne. Okay, so that makes me an absolute expert of all things Soulsborne, of course. So I am very educated on this topic, and now I'm ready to hear your wrong opinions on this video game franchise. But how do you feel about Dark Souls, its difficulty? Like, do you find the games difficult? And I'm gonna ask you a couple questions here because, like, I think we're gonna have similar but very different views on Soul series. Obviously, I'm a big fan, but as someone on the outside who is not as familiar or has as much love for these games as I do, what do you think about just the actual difficulty itself of Dark Souls? Like, do you find it hard? What about it makes it hard? And do you think that it kind of lives up to or serves that reputation that it has of like being the hardest like game franchise around right now, or what are your thoughts on it in general?
I actually like the difficulty of Dark Souls. I do find it difficult, like I think everybody else.
Mm.
Um, but I think there's a few things with Dark Souls which annoy me, and the games in general. And it's particularly one point which really makes it so I don't want to play through Dark Souls games all the way.
Mm.
So just for reference, I've probably played every single Dark Souls Soulsborne game about halfway through. Let's just say that as an easy thing. I've never gotten all the way.
Mm. Never beat any of them.
No, I don't think so. No, and I've got all of them. Elden Ring comes out soon, so I'm hoping. I reckon I will again get halfway through it and then never do it again.
Oh, I hope you do
but
make it through it.
yeah,
It's
I'd
a
like
good,
Elden Ring to be my first
it's
one.
nice to I feel like too when you actually do beat one of the games, it makes you feel like, oh, all right, like I know after I beat Bloodborne, I was like, you know what? I think I'm ready to play Dark Souls now, and
Mm.
then like Bloodborne was my first Soulsborne style game, and then
The
I played
problem
two.
is that my problem with Dark Souls stems in every single one of them.
Mm,
Um, so like I love the way that they're designed. They're designed very, very well in terms of the fact that I never think that the game is messing me up.
mm,
I honestly think the game is hard and it's my fault when I die, which it is pretty much all the time.
mm,
So I can't really complain about that. I do find them difficult. I think it would be wrong of anybody to say that they're easy,
mm,
unless you've been playing them for the same game over and over constantly. Then you could probably say that. But they are difficult games, and I will attest to that. But the problem that I have with Dark Souls is that it wastes my time. It wastes my time so much. Um, and there's one point of a Dark Souls game that I really hate.
mm,
And every single Soulsborne game has this problem where it's the point between dying to a boss and getting back to the boss.
mm.
And I absolutely friggin' hate it. I love when I find a new area and I can explore, and I'm trying to get a bit further to that bonfire. I love that bit. I love fighting the bosses. I love that bit. Right? It's that bit in between where they will always put a bonfire long way away from the
Mm.
boss's, mist door or
This
whatever you
is
want to
known
call it.
as the Walk of Shame in
The walk of shame, yeah.
yeah.
But like, I know it's a bit of a meme and whatever, and people are like, oh, you just don't like Dark Souls because you're bad at it or whatever. And it's like, yeah,
No.
I am bad at the game, but
Well,
I like playing it because I can get through these games. I will be able to get through
yeah.
Bloodborne if I sit there and do it. I will be able to get through Dark Souls if I sit there and do it. I've got like halfway through, so it's not like I'm, bashing my head against the first boss.
Mm.
But it's like I hate in video games where they're just wasting my time, and I think it's more that I've got older now. Like I'm getting much less more patient for this issue that we talked about earlier about permanent upgrades and being gimped from the start, and I just can't like actually get into the game straight away. I got to grind currency to be able to do that.
Right.
Hand holding in video games. I don't want to be handheld. Just let me go off and do my thing. That's why I'm getting much more impatient about a lot of Japanese games, actually, which I used to love. And Dark Souls as well, is the fact that if I die to a boss, like I'm not doing any learning.
Mm.
You're gonna die to a boss a fair few times before you actually learn their attacks and their tells, and then the fact that we can have a proper one-on-one fight. Then
Right.
in terms of that. But when I die and I get sent all the way back to a certain place, I know I can just run. I don't have to
Mm.
fight everything. Sometimes things do jump in front of you, and then you die again halfway on the run back. But the one that sticks in my head is and it wasn't even that bad. It was just really annoying. But it's in Dark Souls. It's the big fire lady spider,
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
and your bonfire is like a bit out of her nest, and it's like across this like big sludgy pond thing,
Yeah.
and then it's on the other side of that pond. And there's a few things that throw it, like big troll things throwing rocks at you, and then there's a few of the bug things at the bottom, which like
Right.
can sometimes they see you, sometimes they don't, whatever. But that run back through that trudging mud,
Mm.
like, and sometimes something would like come up to you and try and fight you, which wasn't a problem. You just take it out or whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes it wouldn't. Sometimes you get hit on the back of the head with a rock. Sometimes you wouldn't, and then but it would just take so long, and it's like all I want to do is
Hmm.
just learn this boss and
That's
fight it. And
interesting to me
there's
because.
no there's no strategy to it.
Mm,
There's no skill. I'm not learning anything. I'm literally just running back, and
yeah.
it's just every time I get to a new boss, I'm dreading it. Not because like the boss fight is going to be hard or whatever. I enjoy learning a boss,
Yeah.
but I know that I'm going to be, that run that I've just done, I'm going to be doing that about 20, 30 more times right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And I
That
just
it
can't stand that. It's such a waste of time.
it is. It varies too. Like, I mean, there are times when, like, I'm surprised that you used that one as an example because I think that's one of the shorter like runs back to a boss, in one of these games. Cause,
Yeah.
but on the flip side of that, you got Demon Souls, right? And the big shield knight guy.
Yeah.
That run where you're running along the top of this tower, there's a
The
dragon
tower, yeah.
chasing you, and like that run. I mean, there was, I think, a point where it broke me, and I
Mm.
sat on top of a tower for about 45 minutes with a bow and about 300 arrows, and just sat there shooting this dragon with arrows over and over, like, because I had done this run so many times that I was like, well, I might as well just fucking kill the dragon and not have to worry about it anymore. Uh,
Mm.
so I ended up doing that, and then by killing the dragon, that means every single enemy on that bridge that dies to that dragon now does
Mhm.
not die to the dragon. So I'm just adding another problem into the equation where it's like, oh, before I could just run and stop occasionally, the dragon would kill everything, and then I could just run a straight
Yeah.
line. But by killing the dragon, now I have to deal with all these other people every single run.
But
I just
that's
thought
what
that was
I'm.
brutal. But like,
Yeah.
I get what you
I know.
mean. I do. I
I
totally get what you mean. And they do, like, they try to mitigate a lot of these runs with like shortcuts, or sometimes the bonfire will just be right outside of a boss battle. Rarely, but it does happen occasionally. But I totally understand that walk of shame is. I mean, they call it that for a reason because it does not feel good to do, especially
It's
when
not
you
even
just
like
want to.
shame. It's like there's no shame in dying to
No,
a
yeah,
Dark
I
Souls
mean,
boss the first time, but it's like it's the walk of boredom. It's the walk of wasting my time, and it's just like
yeah, your
I
mind
like
starts to
I don't want
drift.
to run. Yeah, I don't want to run through that bit. Just it's like, okay, what's my punishment for this? It's like, okay, I've lost my souls or whatever. Right, okay, that's fine. But then it's like, oh, the punishment is that it's going to take you 5 minutes of running. Oh, actually, just by a freak occurrence of AI, this enemy that usually jumps out and you roll past every single time is now like in a different area. The run back to the gargoyles comes to mind with that
Mm. Oh
in Dark
yeah.
Souls 1, where sometimes you run through and it's fine. Those zombie things in the church just don't even notice you. And then
Mm.
sometimes they will just all come and surround you and just absolutely kill you. And it's
Yeah.
just like, ah, this game.
Mm.
But it's the wasting of my time that I don't like. And that's what I'm worried about Elden Ring and the fact that it's open world now. I think like I do like a lot of open world games, and you do run back and forth across the same sort of areas and all that sort of stuff, but
Mm.
there's kind of like there's more that can happen, more like
This is true.
yeah,
There's more
more strange and
variables.
wonderful, more variables that can happen in doing that.
Yeah.
But in Dark Souls, it just seems like, oh, you died again, did you? Well, your
Like
punishment is 10 minutes of your life,
Eld-
5 minutes of your life gone.
Elden Ring, I think, will solve the problem that a lot of open world games have, where I think every single inch of the game world in Elden Ring is going to have some sort of meaningful interaction with you, the player. There is not going to be just a long stretch of empty road trying to get to the next town to get to the next NPC
I
for
hope so.
but yeah, I think that every
But
single direction you pick, there's going to be something challenging, that
But
along the
even
way.
though
But
it's open world, you just know that it's going to be more of a hub world, and then you're going to have these like long areas which are,
well,
kind of a build up to a boss.
yeah,
Then you're going to have the bonfire will be at the beginning of that section, and then you're gonna like as soon as I get to that bit in the game, I'm going to be like,
I know, I
this is
know
wasting my time.
you're gonna get to. I can already see it. You're gonna get to like the first main dungeon, and that's probably gonna be that point where you're like, oh man, I'm gonna have to walk this
If
path
I
a
if I
lot of
could mod
times.
if I could mod the game, right, that every mist door it puts down a bonfire, I would absolutely love these games.
Yeah.
But it's like, don't make me do stuff which isn't challenging and it's kind of a punishment for dying in a game where you're supposed to die a lot.
Mm, yeah.
Like where it's just, oh, I'll waste your time now for 5-10 minutes. And it's not like, Dark Souls has a few different routes that you can go down or whatever, but usually the run back is the same every time. It's not like I can go,
Mm,
oh, I'll go this way this time and see what's down there. It's like you need to get to this certain area and you've done it about 20, 30 times. I
mm.
mean, my heart is pounding sometimes when I'm beating a boss, not because I've spent so long beating this boss and learning it and it's been a really tough fight. It's the fact that I never have to do that run again. That
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, oh my God, thank God for that. And it's like, yeah, okay, that makes me feel good and it probably adds to that. Like, but it's not worth it to have 10 seconds of
Mm.
feeling elated by beating a boss because and then like, hours of misery of running back to it.
So pivoting back to the actual like difficulty levels of these games, right? Because for most people, we would probably say these are like the hardest games that you could jump into as far as like action adventure goes. Um, and I agree. I think that there are some flaws. It's gonna waste your time now and then. But as far as like the actual like difficulty goes, like do you think that Dark Souls, in order to be accessible, needs difficulty modes, or how do you think about their actual like the actual difficulty itself of Dark Souls? Like, forget about the walks back to the bosses and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
um,
I think because my fundamental problems with the games is that run back to the bosses is that I would never choose, even if Dark Souls did have a difficulty slider to them, I would never use it because my problem isn't the difficulty of the game, of the monsters in the world or the bosses. Um, my issue is somewhere else. So, but then again, I understand that the creator has said that obviously they create a very tightly designed world, which is all centered around this one single difficulty, and that's fine.
mm,
But and I know Dark Souls and the Soulsborne games have sold millions and millions of copies, but you are like artificially gimping your potential market
mm,
by doing that. And I know they don't really care because they're making so many anyway, so making so much money off it anyway. Um, but I don't think it's a bad thing that Dark Souls one day could have an easy mode or or difficulty options,
mm.
because a lot of people do want to go around these, and it might sour the experience for some people, but then they've got the actual difficulty mode to play anyway.
Right.
So it's like I don't think it's hurting anyone because the traditional Dark Souls players aren't going to pick easy mode anyway,
Mm,
and the people I wouldn't pick it either, even though I got problems with Dark Souls. But the people that are usually just banging their heads against a wall against the same boss 50, 100 times, at least they can actually experience the games then.
yeah.
So I don't mind about it, but again, like it rolls back to what we said before, is the fact that the developers have to be very upfront with, like, we made the game around this. You are not getting the
Yeah.
developer intended experience
Right.
by playing the easy mode.
So this is like definitely the game where I think that Miyazaki, that is his name. I think
Mm.
he's pretty much like made it clear like if I added an easy mode to these games, that would go against my, creative vision of what these games are. Um, I do think that there the game is the game gives you so many options with play styles, that there is there are easy options nestled in there, right? Like, I think most people know by now that if you're gonna do like a magic class in Dark Souls, you're essentially playing easy mode. Like, that is what easy mode is in Dark Souls. It's just that you're not picking a mode, you're building a character.
But people won't realize that it's too abstract, isn't it?
Well, I mean, of course not. Like, but I mean, it is there, and the people that if you're familiar with the series, like, this. Like, this is one of those things that is just it's built into the game without ever saying like this is the easier option. It's just that if you built a character like this, you're gonna have an easier time getting through the game, and then eventually that like becomes like almost like word of mouth. Like, anyone, it's just like, let's say you tuned in, or someone tuned in to you playing Dark Souls for the first time, and you picked a mage class, not just because you want it to be a mage, right? You're gonna have someone hopping in your chat and saying like, oh, you're playing easy mode. It's kind of a meme, but it is also accurate. Like, that is kind of built into.
But I don't really think that is a good substitute for actual easy mode.
No, it's not,
because
you're still...
I'm not thinking about people like us who this is our gaming is our favorite hobby, and we know all about the Dark Souls stuff. I haven't even finished a Dark Souls stuff game, and I know a lot about them.
What if you just want to play the sword?
But I'm thinking of
sword guy. Like...
we're like the 1%, right? So we know about all this stuff, right? But the general population of gamers, the people that play their mobile phone games, FIFA, COD, whatever, every year, and look at Dark Souls and think, oh, this looks good. Yeah, they might have heard it's hard, but I doubt necessarily that, they would generally boot it up and then take the necessary steps to find out that, oh no, there's a magic mode in it, and like you can,
of course,
you can use magic and do that.
Well,
like, I know it's generally considered easier to play with magic classes, but again, it's like it's still a tough game.
Yeah, so... I mean, all that too is like that kind of like what's the word that I'm looking for? But like all this like Dark Souls is so dense with its like hard to just like parse, like understand, like like there's like how do I put this they don't explain anything to you, right? So me playing Dark Souls for the first time, I would never know that being a magic character is the easier way to play the game. I want to play the game as a guy who dodges around and uses swords. But that automatically locks me into having just a harder time with the game, right?
Yeah.
So it is not a substitute for an easy mode.
Because the key word there is easier, not easy mode.
No.
It's the easier mode. It's
not even a mode.
That much. Well, yeah, I know.
It's just a build.
But,
it's just
a
that
build,
the options... the tools are all there available for you in the game for you to figure out on your own, and that's kind of another piece of Dark Souls itself, where it's like it's not telling you... I mean, it barely tells you what items do and stuff like that, like these are all things, again, like you don't know what the story of Dark Souls is until you read an item description, and suddenly it clues you in on like, it's such an abstract game in so many ways that like I don't think,
but like people always talk about the like incredible lore of the game and stuff. Like, I'm not very interested in it at all, because it's not really my thing. But like the fact that a lot of people out there could experience that if they really want to deep dive into it and kind of understand the lore and piece together, like you said, like item descriptions and stuff, to piece together the world. Like, I don't think that an easy mode will
No.
or I think an easy mode will be good for them to be able to do it. I know that there's builds and weapons and things, they might not make full use of that, but I think that an easy mode for these people, I mean, at the end of the day, like, it comes down to this for me, and like, I'm not one of these like video game elitists or whatever. If it makes it more accessible for the wider audience, then the people that say that Dark Souls shouldn't have an easy mode, their opinion shouldn't matter. Their opinion shouldn't matter, because it's like, if this is getting the game to a wider audience, and people are saying, oh, about the creative vision of the developer and whatnot, and it's like, well, he's still got that creative vision there. He's got his normal mode.
Yeah.
It's just that they're adding an easier mode in there for people that just want to breeze through the game. Disable trophies. Make sure that all trophies are not are only obtainable in the normal mode. Things like that. There are ways and means about it, but it just seems that people have this like kind of elitism when it comes, especially to Dark Souls, where it's like, it's kind of like people have got their medals, and it's like, I've beaten Dark Souls 3, I've beaten Sekiro, I've beaten this, I've beaten that, and it's like, yeah, like, well done, whatever. But people might just want to breeze through the game and just experience it, and don't make it so that each boss is one hit. Give them a bit of a challenge, but
yeah,
it's like, I don't know. It's like, I don't see any problem with adding modes to these games.
Like,
and
I don't think that every I don't think that every game needs to be for everyone. Like,
yeah,
I don't need what's it? All right, so I don't like super tanky, grueling boss fights, or so for example, things that I don't like I don't like Monster Hunter that much, because I'm just spending like an hour on just one thing, and it's taken 4 people to take down like this one thing for an hour, or alternatively, like a Destiny raid boss, or the Division. Like, if you're playing the Division at like a high level, just a normal guy, you'll be shooting him in the head for 5 minutes, and he doesn't even have a helmet on or anything, and he's like still just alive.
Yeah, he's just got a yellow health bar.
Yeah, so like, I don't think that these games like need they don't need to be for everyone. Like, those games, people still love the raid bosses in Destiny. I hate them, and I don't think that if you made an easy mode for a Destiny raid, does that defeat the purpose of the raid, of what a Destiny raid is? Like,
well, they do have difficulty modes for the raids as well, don't they?
I don't know. I don't play Destiny really.
Yeah. So but... yeah, I mean, if you want to play the easy mode and experience it, well, I say easy, it's like the normal mode. But if you want to play that mode and experience it without getting incredible loot at the end of it, then you can. But you're hamstrung a little bit by the fact that your rewards won't be as good, but you'll get the good experience of doing a raid.
Well, like, so here's what I'm getting at, right? Like, I don't think that every game needs to be for someone. And I think that if you're interested in a game, like Happy is interested in playing Dark Souls or Bloodborne, right? But she thinks it's too hard. It might be too hard for her, right? She's saying, would that make it impossible for me? Like, why deprive me of like an opportunity to play a game I'm interested in? And my response to that would be, but like, try it. Like, it might, like, I genuinely waited almost wait, let's see, I waited maybe 6 or 7 years before how long after Dark Souls came out in 2010, right? Or I don't know. Either way, I did not play Dark Souls because I was like, this is gonna be too hard for me, right? And then eventually I played Bloodborne, and it was very difficult. But I enjoyed my time with it, even though it was difficult, and I kept playing it, and I got better at it, and I learned it, and then by the end of it, I just had like, I had a great experience with it, and that led me back down the trail to playing the other Dark Souls games, which I had told myself up until that point, I will never play these games. Like, I don't like, and it makes me think of Ninja Gaiden. Like, it all comes back to Ninja Gaiden 2, which in my mind, in my head, that is the hardest game I've ever played, right? I don't want that level of frustration in any game, like, I want to be able to beat the games that I play, right? But after experiencing Dark Souls, like, I just grew to love it, and I think that there are enough options and tools at your disposal in these games that if you stick with it, anyone could get through these games. I genuinely do believe that. Do I think that Dark Souls, like, would it hurt for Dark Souls to have an easy mode? Absolutely not. I think that anyone should be, any game that anyone wants to play, or that they're interested in playing, they should be able to play it, whether it's Sackboy and you want Sackboy to be like extremely difficult, or it's Dark Souls and you want it to be extremely easy. But do I think that, I don't know, like, is it necessary? Is it necessary? Like, is it necessary? I don't think it's necessary. I think that Happy could get through Dark Souls. I do.
I think she could as well. I think she could, and I would agree that I think she should try it, like, as it is, and see what she's like. I know what she's like as a gamer, what her temperament is, and things like that. I think that if she did come to a point where she was struggling and she was banging her head against a boss for so long, I think that the fact that there's no easy mode for that.
But here's the other thing.
Well, hang on. It's a worse situation for her specifically,
right?
Because she hasn't got the easy mode in there, and what does it take away from anybody else's experience?
Nothing.
It doesn't take away. It doesn't take away. It doesn't take away from our experience, because we're going to play it on normal.
Yeah,
it's going to enhance her experience because she's going to be able to get through it and see more of the game. And like, I hate this like thing about like the director's vision and like, is it necessary and all this sort of stuff. It's like, well, it might not be necessary for somebody like us who play video games a lot, but it might be necessary for other people. And I think the more people that can have a good time with a video game without compromising other people's gameplay is best for everybody, because they sell more copies, we'll get more games like it.
Yeah.
Well, and that's my stance on it.
Like, again, it's like there are options, and if Happy were to start playing Bloodborne, right, and she got stuck on a boss, that boss, she might never beat that boss, but she has the option to call me, and I can join her game as a co-op partner and help her beat that boss. That's what I mean, is like, you have options at your disposal. If you don't want to call someone for help and play the game co-op, then you don't have to. Or if you need help and you don't have internet, there are NPCs that you can summon in the game to, give you the upper hand and stuff. It's just like,
yeah, of course,
that's what I mean. That's all I'm saying is when I say like these games come with like their own built-in kind of options that say like, hey, if you're having trouble with this thing, like, here's your options. Like, it's their own like alternative to an easy mode without completely changing the gameplay experience as a whole. But again, they're built in, like, whether it be, I decided to be a magic guy because that means I can stand all the way back there and still hit enemies, or this boss is doing my head in, so I'm gonna call Plush to,
But it's not just the bosses as well, isn't it? It's like,
well, I mean, the whole
enemies
game
outside
the whole game.
Yeah, it's like the whole game,
They're all playable completely in co-op. So like, if you're really struggling by yourself, you can always Oh, you
But
always have that
yeah,
option available, you know?
but like, a lot of people don't have, like, again, it's like it comes to the accessibility thing. People might not have it. They like the NPCs or whatever. They might be able to use them. They might not be able to use them, or might not want to use them.
Mm.
But it's all about choice, right? It's all about choice for me. And like, I think it's because as well, like, I'm predominantly a PC gamer where we have choice like across the board with like mods and the way that we play our games, what graphics and things, like all these choices across the board is that it just makes me like it just makes me go a bit like, why, if
Mm.
that people are getting left out a little bit. I'm
Yeah.
just like, if I, again, like, if I could go into Dark Souls games and like on the PC, and I'm sure there is a mod for it somewhere, but if I could mod that bonfire to be outside the thing,
Yeah.
I'd probably love Dark Souls. But it's that fundamental problem that makes me not enjoy it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, a
the
lot
fact
of
that it's not too much like effort for a developer if they create the game around this, around their creative vision, and then do some tweaking to whatever the amount of enemies, the health of enemies, the amount of damage you do, whatever, to make that easy mode. It's an option.
Yeah.
It's not the fact that people should be going in and looking for the options within the normal game or whatever. It's like it's an extra option. I think that it's just good
Mm.
overall.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of I mean, difficulty in video games, it's relative, it's subjective. I might find a game that I think is really hard that you think is really easy, or I might have a type
the other
of
way
game.
around, yeah.
Exactly. There might be a certain genre that I just can't deal with, or there might be you might be great at that genre, and it that extends to pretty much like that's why this is such like again a fine line, like a weird, like, kind of a hard thing I think to talk about, because it's it's difficulty in video games,
it's weird because it's like, again, it's like you've got all different types of people with different skill levels. You've got like the people that are like, we should have the creative vision. If you don't beat Dark Souls on the normal mode, then you're not, you don't deserve to play it and all that. You got the extreme people on that side, and then you've got
that's ridiculous,
the people, yeah, exactly, like it's just the ridiculous ends of the spectrum. But then you've got people like me on the other side that are like, well, I think that people should be able to have as much choice with the game as possible, like shove their creative intention up their ass, really. Because it's like it's what I want to do. I can do what I want with a lot of games on my PC, because of mods and whatever. But and that should be accessible to everyone.
Yeah, I have even me myself, I have mixed views on the whole thing. I think that for me, I think it really comes down to like, and even this is subjective, I guess, but like just good design. Like I do genuinely think that the Souls games are just like really well designed, and like for me, like I never, I think that everything is there, that it doesn't, like, I don't think it needs an easy mode, but I don't think that it would hurt anyone to have it as an option. Whereas on the flip side of the coin, we've got Sifu, which again has this very, very specific creative vision and like strict like rules that it's following, and it's like I just wish that you had made this easier, like that's, or given me an option to make this easier on myself, because that is not the game that I thought this was going to be. And I think
then
that
a lot of people would turn around to you and say that it doesn't need a easy mode. It's not,
I'm sure that they would, but
that's the
I
thing,
genuinely
it's
think
the
that
kind of
the design philosophy behind Sifu is all fucked up. Like I genuinely think that there's some things under the hood that are not right with Sifu that weren't considered and need to be looked at. Like that's what but maybe that doesn't matter though, because there's still gonna be someone like Burner Blade who's gonna be like, what, you're stuck on level 2? I'm on the final boss, and it's like, yeah, but like, I don't know,
exactly.
it's not,
that's
so
the thing. A lot of people
I mean.
will say that
Things are, it's such a subjective,
it's subjective, and like in my opinion, that yes, give Sifu an easy mode. If people want to play that, that's fine. Give Dark Souls an easy mode. If people want to play that, that's fine. Everybody else that wants to play it with the developer's intention have got the normal mode or whatever mode. so they can play that. Everybody's happy, and then it's like it's all like I feel like a lot of it is to do with pride and stuff as well.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, have you really beaten Dark Souls? It's like if I do a game on easy mode or hard mode, nobody knows. Like unless it's like some achievement on a profile or whatever. I can go into an internet forum and say, oh, I beat Halo 2 on legendary. So I played it on normal. I played it on easy. I still got to see Master Chief being a badass.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing for me. It's just like it just it doesn't matter to me as long as more people can play more games. That's great. It's great for us all, not just for Dark Souls type games, but it's great for any type of game because more people will play games, more people will buy games, and we'll get cooler games.
Yay, cool games! I like.
Yay,
cool
games! Woo!
But I think that pretty much wraps up today's topic. We covered all the bases that I pretty much wanted to talk about, and I had a good time doing it.
Hell yeah!
I think that we will be doing this next Sunday. Are you available next Sunday?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
I'm not sure what our topic is. Is it gonna be? I suppose we talked about Horizon, didn't we? I suppose we can talk about what your feelings are, even though you might not have enough time to play it.
It depends. Yeah, I mean, the original idea for next week's topic was Elden Ring and Horizon, and we would just talk about both of those games. They're both these big, massive, open world games with very different design philosophies, and I just wanted to spend time talking about both of those. But I don't know if I'm gonna have enough time to play enough Horizon to kind of put more input in. And if you're gonna have enough time to spend with Elden Ring to, put your input in on that side. So we'll play it by ear for now, and
let's play it by ear. If you might get Horizon tomorrow or whatever, and get a good run in with it. I might be able to play a bit more of Elden Ring that I'm expecting to. You never know. And then if not, we can just talk about open world games in general, and then that'll set us up for next week as well. So cool. Let's do that.
Perfect. Cool. I think I'm just going to end, but I thank everyone who came and hung out and chilled with us today. It's been a good show, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.